a huge rock with many mountains around it and thick fog blowing around it. There are long and tall green trees on the mountain. There are also built houses in which people live, and it seems that the main one is a temple. It is in the middle, and also over a large abyss, spreads a long, wooden bridge on ropes. Behind the mountain, a wide beam of red rises, its end entering a swirl of clouds and lightning. At the very center of the beam's glow, a magical confrontation develops. Hovering in the air is a huge skull with large hollows, snows, and huge notches in place of eyes with red pupils. His eyebrows are furrowed in angry bewilderment, and his jaw is tightly clenched. In front of him stands a god from the realm of transformation, in the posture of a samurai. Frozen in a leap, he has some magical power, because around him are silhouettes similar to a hurricane. Both the skull and the man, all in red and black color. In front of the looming god sits a woman fairy Shijuan. Her long curly white hair is gathered in an uncomplicated hairstyle. Her clothes and white sash are flying apart. The very god of transformation was a man in his 40s, with red hair shoulder length, a long mustache from under which you can see a satisfied and slightly snide smile, a beard of the same color as his hair, medium-sized eyes with red pupils, and the eyeballs emit orange-red radiation. Between the hair and beard, you can see white fur. In the beam light, a huge skull now turned to the right side. It has huge indentations in place of eyes and nose. Its jaw is wide open as if in a scream, and between it, something black and white dots. In front of his jaw is a man's hand, a magician with long red hair and a long beard that reaches down to his stomach. He spreads his arms and legs out to the sides, proving his power and strength. He looks like a pirate in his clothes, wearing a purple suit, a red belt with a belt in the shape of a skull, and in his left hand something resembling the motion of a sword. There is a shadow round his eyes, and the man himself is sparkling with a red glow. And that same skull worships is the one he worships. Behind the woman sitting in the beam, a frowning sky can be seen. Her face is beautiful, but looks twitched and wounded. She has earrings in her ears and a chain hanging from her chest. Just below her chest is a bloodstain. She's wearing a blue robe or cloak. She has stopped believing in her salvation from the sorcerer and his assistant. Fairy Shijuan in an approximation, her left eye squinted and her right eye wide open. Her eye color is dark purple, closer to violet. For now, she is only interested in the question, is this the end? In one of the ruined houses standing on the mountain, closer to the battle site, lies a full-looking man with his arms torn off. He has green and straight hair, large round glasses that glow white, a light-colored button-down shirt, and a cloak as well as a shirt splattered with red blood. The name Li King Chi is frozen on his lips. On the floor near the wounded man, a stone from the pure jade sect, which has been hundreds of years in the making, currently lies on a large-sized table. Shrouded in dark magic, the sorcerer began to approach the injured fairy Shijuan. Stepping on the floor, the man made a hole in it. The blast wave and the force of the impact can be seen at the point of impact, and the floorboards flew apart. At the feet of the red-haired sorcerer sits Saint Shijuan. Behind her, the sky is covered with clouds. On her head is a funny hat. The wounds are still on her body as well. The dress can barely hold her large breasts. The woman's look expresses bewilderment. The dress has a white center and blue edges and a wide belt. And standing in front of Shijuan, the man asks her a provocative question, thus showing his power over her and the others from the pure jade clan. He is dressed in a purple shirt and a long, orange-colored vest with yellow edges and fur. After hearing this, the woman shouted loudly, "No!" Her eye went wide in horror. Snatching the chain from her neck, Shijuan clenched it tightly in her fist and slammed it onto the floor. "As long as our disciples are alive." From her last strength, she rose above the ground and finished the phrase, "Nephrite secret will not die." Hand clutching herself, almost clawing at her left arm, wrapped in the long sleeves of her blue shabby robe spread out to the sides, her sash still surrounding her the same way, only more aggressive. At the same time, images of her students pop up in Shijuan's mind. In the black memory circle stands a warrior woman, Chang'Yur, dressed in white with weapons and a dark cloak. Another picture of the disciples from Shijuan's memory. In the same black circle, there are young men. The most prominent one is a 16-20-year-old man with his hair tied back in a bun and a bandage on his forehead. He is wearing a blue shirt and a blue vest. In front of him, on the left side, is a slightly older man wearing a jacket and a cap. A little behind are two young girls, one with two ponytails, showing two fingers up, and the other with a short haircut, both wearing white dresses. They are flanked by 2 more men, and a third behind the girls. The memory pictures are cut short. There is a shadow of a man standing behind the woman. The woman looked defiantly at the sorcerer still standing in front of her. Finally gathering her magic in her hands, Shijuan prepared to fight back against the standing man. She has a dark diamond on her forehead and a chain on her chest. Her hair and earrings point to the left side. She is not ready to lose. The red-haired sorcerer laughs at her pathetic attempts at threats. The man wins his arm backward, gathering his magic around his hand. Ahead of Shijuan's strike, the sorcerer launched purple clots of magic at her with skulls inside. He has fur around his head, and the sleeve of his long vest is down to his shoulder. The same clot of magic that the red-haired sorcerer launched flies straight at the white-haired woman. She is frozen, in bewilderment, and waiting for the blow, her lips firmly closed. Shijuan, with her eyes squinted tightly, prepared for the blow launched by the sorcerer. At the same time as the man, a new kind of magic was launched, yellow in color, circles on the sides, and something similar to the shape of a sword in the middle. The magic launched at Shijuan was interrupted by the yellow glow, and then at the place where the 2 kinds of magic join, an explosion was formed. After the explosion, the magic sword headed towards the sorcerer. Everything turned against him, and now surrounded by strong magic, the man cried out in horror at the question. This is a sword that is controlled by deep chi. The guy who suddenly appeared is holding the Shijuan he saved in his arms, and behind them, the defeated sorcerer is watching them leave. The young rescuer wraps his head back toward the sorcerer. The boy has beautiful light brown eyes, a slightly upturned nose, and an ajar mouth. His right ear peeks out from under his long hair. From the clothes, you can see the collar and shoulder. Leaving the sorcerer behind, a pleased Hanju looked forward. A golden rhombus hangs from his chest. His right hand shows class. Standing beside him, Shijuan grimaced at the feeling of pain in her body. She gazed at the guy, her small mouth slightly ajar. Their clothes are similar. They must be from the same clan and are still just as protected by yellow magic. Unhappy with his defeat, the sorcerer called out to the departing Hanju. You seek death, those were the sorcerer's words. Before his eyes lit up and magic began to gather around him, it looked like he wasn't giving up. Deciding to keep up, Shijuan resolutely looked at the angry sorcerer and ordered Hanju to run away from here. Hearing the order, the guy looked at the woman as if she was grinding something incomprehensible. After hearing this, Hanju put his hand on the woman's shoulder. Saintess, let me join here. With a smile on his face, the guy continued to assure Shijuan of his victory against the old sorcerer from the transformation realm. Hanju, the injured woman, looked at him with pride and concern. After the guy's words, beginning to gather strength, the guy began to tell the sorcerer about his worthlessness and his pitiful kingdom. Immediately after saying this, Hanju tapped his foot on the floor, causing a yellow pulse to emanate. He then began to run. The sorcerer from the transformation realm stared at Hanju running towards him. He was running with great speed and surrounded by his golden magic. As he approached the sorcerer, the guy prepared to launch a spell called 9 Dragons Demonic Seal. After the spell was cast, the guy clenched his palm in his fist, whereupon 9 dragons started flying around him. He ordered the destruction of the transforming god. Rushing to attack, one of the dragons came across a huge skull with its mouth open. Frozen right in front of it, beneath the skull was its master, the transforming god. The skull's master's eyes glowed red, his hands clenched into fists, his magic hovering beneath him. He is ready for another fight. A short time later, virtual screen with Hanju picture and a test about his skills. Someone launched a dice over the screen, and he started rapid movements. Down in a frenzy and raises his hands in the air. He is displeased with the subjective loner graph. In this pose you can clearly see his nose, wide open mouth with a long tongue sticking out of it. The guy's hands are resting on the floor. 11 years have passed. Hanju's worried face with big brown eyes, slightly drawn together eyebrows, and mouth ajar. His hair is brown in color. There is some evaporation on his face and his forehead is a little bluish in color. His suit is green. In the medical ward on a gray pillow lies a bald man, a patient of the last stage of cancer. On his face an oxygen mask for the respiratory system and with suction cups on his chest. If I'm not mistaken, it's cleverly called incubation. In a room with a large panoramic window with a flower on it, a bald man is sitting in a chair, wearing a long-sleeved sweater with a pocket on his shoulder. The window is covered with a blue curtain. Near the chair there is a nightstand with a flower and a cup. On the nightstand, which turned out to be a computer table, is the computer itself. On its screen is a picture of an anime girl with white hair and a tail, with a heart hanging above her. As it turns out, in order not to feel pain, the man created a computer game to grow immortals. Morning, white curtains, rays of sunlight streaming through the window, directly onto the man sitting in the chair. As it happens, during the game, the man dies. A spirit comes out of his mouth. Waves of foul odor hover over his body. The sky is in gray clouds. The sick man has been reborn in another, ancient world. A huge rock with a temple covered by humps. The temple is from the pure jade sect, large and white, with a high ceiling. Below the temple are 3 big houses surrounded by trees. A double bridge stretches to the left of the temple. The mountains can be seen behind. 3 people. In front is a middle-aged man with a long mustache and medium-sized hair gathered in a ponytail. Behind him are 2 more people, a man on the left and someone of a gender I don't understand on the right. They are dressed in dark clothing that looks like a hoodie. The picture is worked with black lines. Rays of sunlight are depicted on the left. Trees. In front are the wooden legs of an unknown building, and in the middle are his father and mother passing by. His parents are dressed in dark clothes and carrying sacks in their hands. The boy on the right is now 11 years old, his hair braided into a ponytail. His eyes are dark orange in color, looking to the right in surprise. He is dressed in a green kimono. In his hands he holds a wooden scoop of water. There is a tattoo on his right arm. Guy's hair is in a ponytail, hands folded under his chest. Incomprehensible surprised look. A belt around his waist, background white and a number of yellow speckles. Many days later, blue sky, to dilapidated halabutus made of wood and thatch roof. One is built on a bridge on the right side. Below the bottom is a river or sea, maybe even an ocean or channel. From underneath the water, there are steps that lead up to the second hut. Sky, trees. The kid is standing on the bridge and exercises by raising his arm up and doing side bends. He has brown hair, a green sweatshirt, dark green long shorts, and a wide belt. There is garlic and corn hanging on the wall of the house, a bucket on the floor and something that looks like a sink. Same picture, except the guy is no longer doing bends, but lifting his legs up with his hands on his waist. Dark-haired guy in green robes, holding a blue, transparent cube with something 3-dimensional in the middle. It's probably her magic power. Her hands don't touch the cube. I owe it and it doesn't fall down. On the blue background, a guy's finger rests on a board game cube. Press. You can see 2 and 1 from it. A very fast spinning cube. A kid is depicted in a falling motion, hair thrown back, head thrown back, and a strong fountain of blood or something red coming out of his mouth. In the left picture, a young Hanju with his eyes closed and streams of tears. The mouth is depicted in a figure H shape with bloody drips. On the left side of the picture, a guy with a white spring above his head. His mouth is open. His right eye is squinted and his left eye is wide open, with a tear frozen underneath. The background is blue at the top and turns white at the bottom. A plain cube. It has the gesture class stamped on it. The corners of the cube are yellow. Beautiful weather. The boy froze in fright. A black shadow passing over his eyes. A blue screen with writing popped up in front of him. A black and white picture of the boy, his face frozen, in an incomprehensible expression, eyes open, mouth open at an angle, teeth visible. Hanju in anim form lying on a green meadow with flowers. His mouth is wide open, with a pink heart inside. His hair is tied in a ponytail and his arms and legs look like tentacles. Close-up of a guy's face with closed eyes and upturned nose. Close-up of Hanju's face, his brown eyes looking challenged. A grown-up guy with arms complicated under his chest. Stands on a mountain with steps going up to it and looks down on a village with people. His second life, he wants to live it with pleasure. Sky. High mountains from under which the sun peeks through. The sea or river beats against the rocks. A boat and the corner of a hut in the foreground. From the mountain can be heard shouting, "Beware, world, there will surely be a day when I, Hanju, will etch my name into your history." The brown-eyed fellow looks to the right in surprise. His eyes and mouth are open. There are trees behind him, slightly trailing clouds, cliffs on either side, and cranes flying by. In front are the cultivators of the main sect, a man and a woman. Ting Hong Huan has medium-length brown hair, a dress that supports her bust, a golden belt, stockings on her legs and a white bolero with long, wide sleeves. Male. Hair is gathered in a gullet tied with a ribbon, a scarf around the neck, a belt around the waist, and a sword on the back. A small crowd of people look up at the incoming guests. They must have been immortal in the past too. Their puzzled and questioning looks look funny. In the back a rooster is pecking the ground and a pig is standing near the men. Hanju's face looks like a zombie. Only his complexion said that he was still alive and feeling envious. Dark hair covered by shadows, eyes burning red, and a backward smile. A man with a condescending face, looking slightly downward, narrow eyes, mouth ajar, shadow on nose, hair gathered in a gullet wrapped in ribbons, brown bandage on forehead. His neck is long, covered by a hood. Angry, graying man with sharp facial features, long and sharp, mustache and beard. The mouth is ajar and a shadow runs under the eyes. A yellow, wide collar is visible from the clothing. A bow with brown hair and bangs on his face. His face is surprised, his eyes are wide open and his mouth is ajar. A drop of sweat runs down his cheek. The clothes are the same as last time. In the background are rocks, and in front a woman of stunning beauty Hin Hong Huan. Her hair appeared red, her gaze indulgent. A black choker is worn around her neck, with a golden lozenge underneath, and a black net goes down. The bodice of the dress covers the heavy breasts of the hostess and it looks like they are about to fall out. She and her assistant are here to guard these people. Hanju, whose look expresses genuine relief, as always bangs on his face. His eyes are closed. His mouth depicts a sigh, and his right hand rests on his chest. The close determined look of a brown-haired man, staring resolutely straight ahead. Small nose and raised eyebrow. Next day, a circular structure in the form of two-story houses. In all the windows lights are burning, and in the foreground, the branches of a tree. Such a structure is called Shiheiwan, a type of traditional Chinese construction, in which four buildings are placed with their facades inward on the sides of a rectangular courtyard. 2 years later, it's winter outside, cold. In the picture, still the same manor house and still the light in the windows. Hanju is very pensive today, sitting with his back to me with his head propped up with his hand and his right hand resting on his leg. On his back are ties of white cloth in the shape of a cross, with a knot in the middle. The man is distraught, closed eyes and a hand covering his handsome face. A lone tear runs down his cheek. A gray-haired man stands on a dais, flanked by a fire burning on stands. The man is dressed in a blue, long outfit, his short hair tied back in a ponytail. There are 3 steps down from the stage, and opposite are kneeling men and a pig. Same picture, angry graying man with sharp facial features, long and sharp, mustache and beard. The mouth is ajar and there is a shadow under the eyes. A yellow, wide collar is visible from the clothing. In the foreground, 3 aggressive men and a smiling pig. The first man an old man with covered eyes, a medium-sized nose, an ajar mouth, and wide white eyebrows and mustache. Dressed in blue baggy clothes and his left hand frozen in an explanatory gesture. The second man a young-looking bald guy with a brown bandage on his head and his eyes hidden by a shadow. He is wearing a vest in brown and his hands are bandaged in some places. The third man a somewhat well-fed young man with a bandage on his head, wearing a light blue robe and black pants, hands folded in an aggressive gesture. Behind them stand several other men and all harp on their ability to serve the Lord. A strange-looking guy in green robes. His facial expression is quite funny. His eyes are white without pupils, blackness above them. His lips are folded in a backward smile, with the lower one covering the upper one. On a blue background with white stripes, Hanju stands in a crowd of people looking surprised. His eyes are wide open and his mouth is shaped like a multiplication sign, or an X, with a blue question mark above it. There are people scurrying around him. On the left a chubby guy with a chicken. On the right a man and a girl with her lips folded into a duck. Night. Dark forest. Behind are for shadows of unknown people, and in front are for people from the crowd. A bald man, a girl's head, a young guy and an angry man with a bald spot on the top of his head. A surprised-looking man with his mouth ajar, sharp facial features and gray hair. Hanju watches with a concerned face as the gray-haired man holds the hand of a young boy, about 15 years old, in brown, baggy clothes, with a yellow wide bracelet on his left hand, which is what the man is holding him by. Now Hanju is also standing in the same pose as the boy, with the same expression on his face, and someone is holding him by the same left hand. Could it be a memory? Although gray-haired man said there is no spiritual root detected in the boy, a gray-haired man and a chubby guy with a chicken. Only the guy's hand is being held by a black-clothed man hidden by a black robe, and the gray-haired man has detected the very same root in him. The same chubby boy looks forward, drops of sweat running down his face, Pupils shrunken, mouth ajar, he seems pleased. The left side of the girl's face is hidden by her hair. Only her brown eye with a drop of sweat on her cheek is visible. Come in sunshine, a house with a red flag, an observation tower, more houses and a gray wall with a hole in it. People working in a rice field standing in confusion. Wide straw hats on their heads, green work clothes and a basket on their backs. Above each man hangs a huge, white blob signifying excitement and incomprehension. A wooden fence, parallel to it hangs in a stridka tubos in anim form. They have their arms raised, a broad smile on their faces, their backs tied with white cloths, and a wide belt around their waists. Beneath the feet of the individual on the left, a blue censer and both are swirled in thin swirl lines. In front of Hanju's boyfriend, a blue touch screen popped up with inscriptions about the spiritual calving of the six paths. A joyful guy in green and bangs on his face looks at the virtual blue screen with text. His eyes are open, his nose is upturned, and his lips are spread in a wide smile. Above the blue screen, a red one pops up, only scaled down. Hanju could create a closed world. A guy with a thin smile excitedly stares at the screen and seems about to press the create button. The guy's fingers are frozen a millimeter away from the button. There's a blue and white background in the back and a brown-eyed brunette with a high ponytail in the front. In front of him is a blue screen. You can see that he is happy with his decision. Hanju will officially take the path of perfection today. The system began its actions. The screen seems to have changed shape and become bulkier. Long, thin, and sharp pieces of ice looked upwards. Something that looks like ice, but seems to be a huge blue platform on which, in lotus pose, sits Hanju. White and slightly sharp lines are swirling around him. A little closer up, with his legs crossed and his arms resting on them, sits a guy on a blue platform, pondering in his choice of cultivator. The green tot, black bottom man's shoes look like checks. A guy looks up pensively, still questioning his choice. Hanju covers his mouth with the palm of his hand. He's in a pensive state. Even a drop of sweat has frozen on his cheek. I will choose the path of cultivating a swordsman. It was with these words that the guy pressed the creation button. The brown-eyed brunette was surrounded by a white swirl, casting blue. His hair flared, his eyes buried under the shadows, his arms spread apart. A virtual sensor, on the screen of which, Hanju in anim form, with text, as in online games. Text at the top, screen at the bottom to familiarize yourself with it. In the middle is a guy in a tense look, eyes and mouth wide open, left hand raised and index finger touching his cheek. The same familiarization picture, but only with an angry, gray-haired man, sharp facial features. Hanju in a very aggressive state, and a funny face. The eyes are white, pupilless and boat-shaped. The mouth is curved and teeth are visible. His left hand is bent into a fist, with a red sign above his head. He doesn't understand why the gray-haired man, still angry with him. Profile of the right side of Hanju's face. The mouth is ajar. There are drops on the face. The eyes are relaxed but not closed, and there is steam from the mouth. Two hands, one below the bottom, the other above, but they are not touching each other. Two closed palms. Serious-minded guy. He holds his hands in front of him, facing each other, head slightly lowered. A cape has appeared on the body. There is a blue background in the back. Starry sky right in the girl's room. Different colors of planets, stars, comets, different flight paths. The room has a long nightstand, a table, a ladder, a dresser, a vase on the dresser, something like a dream catcher of huge size on top. In the middle of the room sits Hanju with his legs tucked under him, and his hands folded together. The guy's head is down, his eyes closed, his eyebrows drawn together. Above him fly different colors, small planets. Red sensor screen with choices for cultivation. Bangs, evenly raised eyebrows and eyes cast in red and pink. Chin and a satisfied smirk. Neck hair, the edges of the sweater. Sunset hobbles, behind the mountains. Below the mountains is a village. In front of the village houses is a wall, and in front of the wall are people working in the fields. Green grass and a hand holding a deep, wooden spoon with water. A guy in good spirits has started cultivating plants. His hair is tied in a ponytail and his hand is stretched forward. The background is bright and even sunny. It depicts flowers, kittiwakes and some grass. A huge number of different plants. They differ in their length, width, color, type of leaves and petals. Hanju again, tense and delighted with the high level of his plants. Eyes open and looking slightly downward, mouth ajar, hand in a fist propping up his forehead, something like a sign near his mouth. Hanju in anim form, with a double head. There is no mouth. The eyes are round and completely brown, and there's a blob on the cheek again. Of the clothes, the same green blouse and white cloths are visible. Along the way, the brown man meets two males, one of them with field equipment. He has a short haircut, round eyes, mouth in a smile. He is dressed in a baggy-looking tank top and brown capri pants. He waves his right hand at her in greeting. Hanju has an added picture of greenery on her back. The legs of both of them are bandaged. They are standing on the edge of a mountain, with a village visible behind them. Three young girls seem to be madly in love with Hanju and his ability to cultivate. Their mouths are wide open, with a pink heart in their mouths. One of the girls even has saliva flowing. Their eyes are heart-shaped and glow red. The first one has medium dull gray hair, eyes hidden by a mask of embarrassment. The second has a bob haircut, blue and white robes, and her hands clasped to her cheeks. The third's clothes are not quite visible, but she has two gules and a bald spot on her head. A guy in green clothing with his eyes covered and a basket behind his back walks up the steps. The brown-haired guy's gaze is covered by bangs, eyes open and looking to the right, slightly upward. Someone has called out to him. Hanju's gaze turns to the red-haired maiden who appeared out of nowhere. Xing Hong Quan, dressed in a black dress, the bodice of which holds her breasts. From the bodice comes a net and ends near the choker worn around her neck. Under the choker hangs a golden rhombus. A red-haired woman with medium-length hair and a white bolero on her shoulders walks deep into the woods, followed by a young boy. Hanju walks under tree branches, their shadows falling across her face. His bangs fall over his eyes. His face expresses ignorance and a bit of excitement. A virtual screen with images of a belligerent girl and the same summary to familiarize you with her abilities. A surprised look from the brown-eyed man, a single drop on her cheek, eyes open and eyebrows furrowed. Xing Hong Quan froze, a half-turn, bare shoulder, hair fluttering in the wind and a sly look in her dark brown eyes. The Shaitan man held his hands on his head in surprise and began to stare in wonder at the woman he met and answer her question. With a sly expression on her face, the woman offers the guy a favor. Her mouth is ajar, pupils in the right corner of her eyes, and thin eyebrows. Standing on a wide path in the forest, the woman has begun, saying something about an alchemical recipe for iron and about leaving the Pure Jade clan. She has a floor-length black dress with a deep neckline on her right side. Her left arm is raised in a gesture of conversation, and her left hand rests at her side. Her eyes are hidden by a shadow. Hanju is standing with her back to the screen. On his back is a basket of greens. His shoulders are tense and his palms are clenched into fists. The stone statue of the guide is puzzled. A woman stands on the path, taken from an overhead angle, developing wide bolero sleeves. Large breasts barely fit into the bodice of a black dress. Also an overhead perspective of a standing guy. You can see the top of his head, his left arm slightly distracting, and a basket of greens on his back. Profile of Hanju's face from the left side. Background color dark or dark purple. A rather angry look and frowning eyebrows. Another drop runs down his cheek. Xing Hong Quan gives him a difficult choice. Hanju's close gaze and her right eye, the pupil of which is pointed to the right, long bangs below her chin and a shadow over her eyes. Screaming and howling will be useless. In the background, a guy's back with a basket of greens. In the foreground, a red-haired beauty with her eyes covered and a cute smile. Her left hand is raised to her face and her right hand is folded under her chest. Purple background and a heavily clenched fist with tense veins. Yellow checkered background with green and yellow molds. A guy in an anime look and with a basket on his back, looking slightly perplexed with his left hand raised to the back of his head. His eyes are closed and his mouth is wide open. Hanju tries to shrug off Xing Hongquan's suggestion. Background in a state of motion. The profile of the girl on the left looking at the hand on the right. The girl's eyes are wide open and puzzled. The red-headed bestie is frozen in motion. Her hair is parted to the sides. Her head is tilted slightly to the right, and there is a golden sash around her waist. White background. A red-haired woman with a languid expression holds by the chin, a young and puzzled by her actions. A guy. A close-up of the girl's right eye covered by bangs. Its pupil is reduced and the eyebrow is raised. Xing Hong Quan gives the guy a large black pill to reveal his potential. A girl stares wide-eyed at the personality clutching her jaw with her hand. She forcibly forced the boy to drink the pill, Hanju's neck stretched out. The redhead looks at the guy with a warning look, raising up the index finger of her right hand. The corners of her eyes glow red. Be a good boy, relax. Hanju's head is tilted back with his mouth open with drool flowing out of it. He said thank you to her, but mentally sent her away. She Haewon, and again the lights are on in all the rooms. In front of one of the windows are 3 beds of flowers. The light vomit of a kneeling guy, flying in different directions, a black pill, also bounced off somewhere. Hanju kneels down and wipes his mouth with his right hand. The tips of his eyebrows are raised. The guy's fierce gaze stares at the floor, a drop of sweat on his cheek, open eyes and raised eyebrows. A transparent virtual screen, red in color with text about the threat of a brutal cultivator named Xing Hong Quan. Guy looks at the red one with text again. A dark room, with a huge, slightly ajar caged window in the middle. To the left are intricate white-colored clothes. To the left on the wall is something tied up, yellow in color, with a basket of ladles underneath. The walls and roof are supported by the wooden skeleton of the structure. Hanju sits pensively in a room with his legs tucked up and his hands resting on them. Light streams in from a large window and black-colored letters of Chinese float by. Outside the guy's window, an unexpected guest has appeared, with whom they negotiate passage to the study room where the prescription is located. Silhouette of the man in the window. Time is important, we need to do it fast. The guy's distraught face and dripping teardrops. A wrinkle has appeared under his eye. There are black clouds in the sky. A full month shines brightly in the sky. The top of a building peeks out from below, with a square roof, red walls and lights on in the windows. Black, tall spruce trees. Behind them a huge-sized building that looks like a hotel. The walls of the house are red. The windows are rectangular and thin. Lights are on in all the rooms, and the partitions between floors are zigzag shapes. The corpse of an unaged man lying on the floor is splattered with scarlet blood. His hair is unkempt and scattered on the floor. There is a brown bandage on his forehead, and his hair just above the back of his head is tied in a gullet. His eyes are open, white in color and without pupils. Around his neck up from the hood, from below, is a white and green shirt with a yellow triangle neckline. Over it is a green cloak with white edges. Above the man, the legs of an unidentified individual are visible. Hanju squats down and looks at the lying man. Rest in peace, my brother. I don't even know your name. The sleeves of his sweatshirt are rolled up. There is evaporation on his forehead. His forehead is blue and his eyes are open. His pupils have almost reached the shape of his eyeballs and his mouth and nose are missing. Or balcony in a house with a railing, with a wooden staircase going down from it, where something incomprehensible lies on the floor. Either an arm has come out of the floor, or just a scrap of cloth. The wind carries green leaves from the wood. Hanju looks up with a bold expression, illuminated by the light of the moon. He is in a building from which he can see a corner of the frowning sky, and he knows that they are all being killed by Xing Hong Quan. The boy peered through the wooden door unknown to her without fear, but with expectation of something. He cautiously peeks inside the room. Taking on the anim look again, he sneaks into the alchemy master's room, which turns out to be no small size. The doors are wide, and the floor has white linoleum with patterns of squares. A large, light-colored carpet with intricate patterns covers the floor. There is a wooden stool on it, a large white vase near the door, and above it all, below the ceiling, is a wooden beam. A funny-looking Hanju began to survey the room and peek into different corners with lines of his movements. Then he stands in the corner of the sideboard, with the dishes on top. Then he peeks into it, and finally tired, he lies in the middle of the carpet, between the tea table with 2 chairs and the rug under the door. A hand holding a small box, something resembling a truno, rests on a yellow, light-colored surface. The edges of the box show yellow swirling lines. With a bored look and a hand propped on her head, Hanju began to stare at this box. To the left of it stands a wooden trinket, not clear for what purpose. In dark colors, a guy with sparkling red eyes, thinking about life and looking at a black brush, a black handle with a dragon encircling it, a golden sash and a white pile with a gray tip. You can even see the glitter coming from the brush. It's night outside, and the lights are on in the room. At the wide window sits a red-haired beast. Her hands are resting on the windowsill between her legs, and her legs are bent in a crouch. Did you find the recipe? White sleeves flutter in the wind, and red lines of magic surround their mistress. Hanju, at this time, is between the window and the cabinet with the chest and documents. He is frozen as if melted clay in the sun. His eyes are very wide open and his pupils are severely constricted. He is visibly very frightened. The woman crouched in a foot-on-foot pose and tilted her torso slightly forward. On the wall below the windowsill is the shadow of her body. The middle of her black dress appeared to be red. Her eyes are hidden. The guy pleased her with a negative answer. Xing Hong Quan is depicted in purple lighting tone. Her head is tilted to the right side. Her mouth is ajar, and her left eye is covered by her hair. She has a threatening look in her eyes. In her left hand with long and manicured nails, she holds a piece of her magic, framed in red. Stepping back, the boy crashes his back into a closet. The closet holds thick folders of papers and rolls of rectangular sticks. From the collision between the girl and the cabinet, the outermost vase did not hold up and began to fall. White background with black stripes. In the right square is Hanju with a spring of hair on his head. In the left is a red-haired woman. Their looks are the same: wide-open eyes, reduced pupils, realization of what has been done, and intense stares. In the shards of the vase they saw a scroll. Its middle is orange in color and its edges are green. Two female individuals stand across from each other and look at the scroll lying there. It appears to be the recipe for alchemy. The guy and girl have already stood across from each other and prepared to fight. White background with round flecks of yellow. The woman has a wide open mouth with a small heart in the middle. She took on an anim-like appearance and began to hug Hanju's shoulders tightly, depicting "Joe, you are my talisman." The boy froze in her arms in bewilderment, clasping his hands together. The foreground depicts the back of Hanju's head, with an anim woman in front of her, joyfully clutching a scroll in her hands. The tense gaze of a guy whose eyes are hidden by a shadow, while a drop rolls down her cheek again. The back of the woman standing, a veined hand holds a small, long case. The guy thinks to take the opportunity. While Xing Hong Quan is thinking how to open the scroll, the guy has already swung over her head. Suddenly, the girl turned her head and directed her gaze at the guy. Blown away by the green magic, the guy lifted himself up with one leg tucked under him. A huge, green and bright explosion caught the woman with the scroll. She turned away and covered her face, crossing her arms. The scroll, in turn, flew out of the woman's hands. The prescription lies in her hand. The hand is embraced by a green magical spiral. There are clouds of dust tandulum on the floor. A perpetually disgruntled man with sharp facial features, a long mustache and beard pointed at the ends, stands frozen in the aisle. His gray hair is tied back in a bun at the top of his head, his eyes surrounded by black shadow. He is dressed in a blue cloak with a wide collar and an emblem on it. His waist is surrounded by a yellow belt with black rectangles. He holds a scroll in his left hand, and green clots of magic hover around him. How dare you hunt an alchemical recipe? An angry red-haired woman in the dust from the explosion, looking disgruntled and angry at the man who has entered, holding her right hand against the forearm of her left. The right side of the man's face, wide gray eyebrows, beautiful blue eyes, nose, long mustache, sharp cheekbones, and an ear peeking out from under the gray hair. Prepare to die. The man launched magic at the woman and the woman in due time rose above the floor. Surrounded by it, the woman's arms are down and her hair spread with the gust of magic. Against a gray background, the woman is either standing leaning forward or flying with her back up. Her legs are clad in stockings with yellow elastic bands. In the white background, the woman is in motion, covering her face with her right hand. She has turned too much energy and can now. Night Street, the red-haired beauty bulleted out of the room, kicking her heels back up, dress, sleeves and hair flying back. On the floor, scattered things from the room: a chair, books, dishes, and a vase. In the middle of all the junk lies, covered by Hanju's arm with his clothes. His left hand is covering his face. His leg is tucked up. An old, serious-looking man is watching this picture. In front is the shadow of a man with his head raised. A man stands in the background looking at the guy. The elder does not open his gaze from Hanju, who has already sat down on the floor. He creased his face in pain and put his left hand to the back of his head. He decided to cover up his position and turn the tables on Xing Hong Quan. Behind her, lying fallen, a huge vase, the corner of the bed and the dresser. Negotiations between the elder and Hanju. He, with an apologetic face, put his right hand under his head, taking the vase and his square stool under her arms, gathered herself to leave, saying that it was foolish to think that she would take a young lad as her husband. His yellow collar, so long it reaches to the middle of his head. The boy started running away after the man sent him to bed. In front of him, A virtual message faded away in a swift flight. The guy looks at it with calmness and a soft smile. A lone virtual screen, red in color and with text in the middle, notified him of the winning rescue technique. 2 years later, a log stands in the ground, cut into 2 equal pieces. Next to it, a medium-width semicircle of magic departs from it. Hanju, with a satisfied look, stretches out his hand to the left, spreading his fingers. His hand is surrounded by a magic spell. Above, there is a wooden building above him, pillars on each side, joined by a wooden staircase. The sky is clear. Tiller of wood, grass on ground, a hand holds a piece of logs, and on the left is a finished place to stack them. A wide path, with bushes on its sides. Walking along the path on opposite sides are 2 people, a man walking to the right. On his shoulder he carries a basket of greens and Hanju with firewood. In these 2 years, he has gained above for spiritual roots. Sunset, the tops of the trees. The guy with the firewood is walking down the steps and thinking about his decision to leave the green garden. Green sweatshirt with sleeves rolled up, black pants, capri pants, shoes and bandaged ankles. Against the sunset, Hanju's tired face with bangs and hair tied back in a ponytail. The sky again and the guy with the ponytail and bangs. Only his eyes are now hidden by shadows. He decided to leave this place after all. A white wooden table, on it lies a ladle, plates and spices. In the middle of the table is a round hollow with a wooden lid. There is a bucket with a triangular lid near the table and a wooden bench opposite it. On the wall hangs a bundle of corn. Beneath it a mountain of firewood. Hanju has passed the fence of his village. He is in the same attire, only added a light brown scarf and a sack slung on his back. He looked back at the gate. Goodbye 20 years of living in this place. A frowning sky, a large, white, tall temple composed of piers and beams. The roof is high and there are lanterns under the awnings. The temple itself is composed of white and yellow colors, with a golden emblem in the middle of it. The blue, bright sky can be seen through the white, long beams that hold up the roof of the great temple. Standing on the high steps are 2 young men with their hands folded behind their backs, wearing blue robes and a sword at their side. Both men are black-haired. Beneath their feet and above their heads, white clouds float. In a brown cloak and a sack on his right shoulder, stands Hanju looking at the white steps and about to hide his identity. Blue sky. The guy introduces himself to the 2 men and asks if he can join the Pure Jade clan. A guy stands on the old temple steps. Opposite him are guards, surprised at his seniority. On the white, sparkling floor are 2 guards, one brunette and the other blonde, dressed in blue garb, a saber or sword at one side. Both have their hair braided into gules tied with a ribbon. Blue sky and white clouds, with a great roof on the left side. Opposite stands a middle-aged man who is the outer guardian of the clan. He has medium-length black hair, a golden triangular collar on his chest, a long jacket in blue and white. He has a nice smile, glasses over his eyes, and a small heart around his neck. Blue sky. The clan guardian extends his hand to Hanju. At the request of the guardian, the guy started to show his spiritual energy. Hanju closed his eyes and released his magic, breaking the corner of the mountain. Purple sky, magic, and 3 very surprised individuals watching the youngnish. 3 men with bulging eyes with barely visible pupils inside. Of their clothing, they are wearing a white shirt with a black collar and a green vest. Gray and white striped background. The guardian looks suspiciously at the guy's technique. Blue sky and white clouds. The man reports that the guy has become a disciple of the outer Pure Jade sect. Expensive city. The tall houses look brightly clean and neat. Thick red squirrels holding the ceiling, between which are the gates to the inside. They are executed in white and red colors. Down from the entrance are steps. The guardian began to speak about the disciples of the sect. Farther back 2 more men sit opposite the passers-by, surrounded by green magic. The floor is made of white, rectangular stone. Hanju began to ask about the inner disciples of the sect. Blue sky and the shadow of a huge mountain behind the temple and just a big house made in white and green colors. The top floor has a balcony with a fence. The Pure Jade sect seems unbelievable. Hanju looks at the men and asks about the lightning and fire cultivation places with suspicious interest. White background with a black, sharp circle in the right corner. The guardian began to wonder about the presence of the guy's lightning spiritual chi. A brown pillar and a gray brick building. 2 men stand around it. One passionately talking and gesticulating about something and the other listening. Crowned with patterns, A man in glasses and light clothing is watching the actions of a guy, and he is clutching a hand from which sparks of magic appear, but already white in color with purple edges. With a satisfied smile, Hanju shows off his mastery of lightning cultivation. His eyes gleam, and his mouth spreads into a smile. In purple and violet, a man's gaze is depicted a frightened eye with glasses. The oldest hall. In a large room, a man stands with his arms out to the sides, and a little farther away, a young mage. The guardian asks the man hidden in the shadows to accept Hanju into the pure Jade clan. At a massive wooden table sits a man who is no longer quite young. He has a black cap on his head, gray hair, raised eyebrows, duck-like eyes, a wide nose, and wrinkled lips. He is dressed in a white shirt with a green triangular neckline and a gray vest. In his left hand he holds a brush and writes something on paper. On his desk he has a typewriter, a glass with brushes, to things I don't understand, and a small nightstand with two shelves with documents in it and a teapot on it. Behind the man is a closet with a huge number of small drawers. He agreed to the man's words, but only if Hanju passes the test. Hanju wants to suppress some of his species so that the elder and the guardian won't find out about them. The dark-haired man smiles at the old man and points to the left with his left hand, showing off the guy. The old man's mouth is ajar in surprise, from which a single tooth is visible. Daishan pink striped background with a wooden pole on it, and on the pole a sign with the face of a black-haired man. His head is turned to the left. He has glasses on his eyes, a smile on his face, and a request to prove his ability. The same beige-pink color as the man, showing one cultivation ability. More appeared lightning, fire, and wind. The guy is wearing pure jade sect clothes. He has a pouch in his right hand, a small box on his head, and a large pouch under his arm. And also hanging from his elbow is another small sack in the shape of a white kitty in panties. Anim-looking Hanju, with a sack under his arm, looks up at the man and old man waving at him from around the corner of the purple hall. With a slightly tired and disgruntled look, the guy looks up. His mouth is ajar and there are small wrinkles under his eyes. His hair is braided back into a ponytail. The white floor, in the whirlpool of his yellow magic, bending one knee sits Hanju with a serious look. Closed eyes, level eyebrows, and a ray of magic illuminating Hanju's face. White background, black circle of zigzags. In the circle sits little Hanju with brown eyes. He stares in surprise at the blue virtual screen. It seems in the future. He wants to grasp immortality. A white background with a circle of open-work black zigzags. This is the body from Hanju's past life. His hair is blonde. His eyes are covered by bangs, and his mouth is curved in a smile. He is dressed in a white t-shirt and a yellow sports sweatshirt with his hand hidden in the pocket. A whistle hangs around his neck. He has realized his past mistakes and the reason for his cancer. The black shadow of a young man sitting in a lotus pose. He is now interested in nothing. Nothing but living a long life. The sun is shining on the guardian. His glasses glisten in the light and his lips are in a smile. His left hand stretched forward. The house has a green wooden ceiling. One wall is red and one wall is white but with red edges and patterns in the middle. The tense gaze of the black-haired man with glasses radiates fear. Even a drop of sweat runs down his cheek. The frightened expression on the man's face looks ridiculous. He sensed a change in Hanju's aura became stronger. The glasses are still shining the same way. The mouth mangled. On the white shirt, yellow triangular collar. The guy turns his head slightly to the left looking bored and emotionless. Rays of fire magic are flying in front of him. Greetings first elders, Hanju says hello, bowing in a bow. The black silhouette of a man was one of the elders, the old man, Hanju, and the guardian lined up in front of him. All three of them bowed their heads and put their hands behind their backs, dialoguing about the guy's lightness. The silhouette of the man turned out to be a full man. He sits on a wooden stool. His head is bald without a hint of hair. His face has large round cheeks, long ears, closed eyes with hanging skin and round red lips from which you can see his teeth. The man's body is as smooth and hairless as it is bald. Of his clothes, he wears a white, light robe with pink edges. In his hand, he holds a white porcelain cup with a stand. He says that Hanju can become a disciple of the inner sect, but to do so, a master must be found. The broad face of a not young man, wrinkled forehead, saggy, closed eyes, large nose with ears, and full lips. I understand a serious look in the guy's brown eyes, a raised eyebrow and all framed by chocolate-colored hair. An elder in a white robe and blue pants along with Hanju in a blue jacket are sitting on an obscure brown thing, flying across the bright sky. It looks like a pear, but with more rounded sides, tied in the middle with a rope and a yellow tip on the bulging top. The lad's head is turned to the left, his right hand props up his chin, the corner of his eyebrow is raised, and his gaze is pensive. He chose to be a low cultivator. White background with yellow chickens. In the background is a bald man, just as funny and thoughtful looking at the guy standing across from him, even though he's smiling. His face looks scary. Overhanging eyelids cover his eyes, creases hang from his lips. His right hand strokes his second chin. A blue, bright sky. A large mountain under the sky. Approached by a girl and a bald man on his interesting vehicle. By the way, he's already picked out a park for the guy. A flock of cranes with a red tot and yellow beak fly by in the sky. Their necks slightly colored black. There are clouds of dust underneath the bottom. Standing on the floor, Hanju raised his surprised gaze upward. His bangs hang down, one eye hiding a shadow. With his clothes and his eye cover, he looks like a pirate. A golden diamond appeared on her chest. With intense surprise, the boy looks forward. A beautiful blue sky. Huge, towering cliffs. Above the tops of the cliffs are glowing blue circles with magical rays going upwards. Middle of sky, frowning, gray clouds with a guy and a flying machine flying over. Blue sky with large cloud and temple roof. In the foreground is a young, dark-haired man. His hair tied up in a gullet tied with a yellow and long ribbon. The man's head is tilted downward. He has a ninyak or black shadow over his left eye and is wearing a blue kimono with white edges and wide sleeves. They are practitioners and can already fly their swords. Hanju will learn this in the future. Blue sky, a long pink tongue, a huge yellow mouth, big black eyes with a small pupil and a brown dragon body with a rider on its back. Bright sky. The buildings of the pure jade intersect where you can do missions, get pay, and trade. Blue sky and white clouds. Hanju is amazed at the grandeur of the pure jade sect. Sky, clouds, high mountains and forests. In the midst of all this nature stands Palu, a gate erected to honor rulers, heroes, and even important events. It is built of wood and to white roofs of different sizes. The top window of the Palu is jadeless, short and desolate. A pensive man with a bald head. His eyes are heavily covered, his mouth ajar, and his right hand is stroking his second chin. His thoughts are of the mistress of the Jade Mad Peak Fairy Shijuan. She does not allow her disciples to have feelings for each other. Behind the forest, and a head turned slightly to the right, is a kindly man with a bald head and wearing a white robe. His nose is potato-shaped, his eyes can't be seen, and his lips are in an ajar round shape. In front of him is a green statue with a hat. They have the ability to change time. Purple background with black vertical stripes. The Jade Serene Peak suits me very well now. I can cultivate without working. A slightly anxious guy said with a creepy expression on his face. The guardian was greatly surprised by Hanju's words, wide open eyes with very small pupils, a second chin, a round nose, sagging cheeks, and full red lips. Large drops of sweat rolled down his face. The background is white with gray flecks. An aerial view of the hall of a room with a circular drawing in the middle. The picture is in 3 colors: white, yellow, and green. The custodian introduces the guy. Inside the temple, on both sides are massive and tall columns of white color. In the middle of the hall stand the guests. A little farther away, a shapely blonde woman in a white dress, red bolero and long-haired chinyuffer is watching from the left side. In front of the arrivals sits again an important person from whom only the outline of the body is visible. The mistress of the Jade Mad Peak Fairy Shijuan sits in front of them. Her gaze is calm and even bored. Small nose and small red lips. On her ears are gold diamond-shaped earrings. Around her neck is a gold necklace, a 2-colored dress white with blue and a strap on one shoulder. A pale blue cloak with a medium-high collar is thrown over her shoulders. Her words addressed to Hanju. Are you ready to join my peak and focus solely on improving? The words spoken by Shijuan stumped Hanju. Our Jade Serene Peak finally has a beautiful disciple. One of the Serenity Peak's female disciples seemed to be overjoyed by this news and showed her virtual screen for review Changyuer to stars. A young blonde girl with a red bolero, white coif and a beautiful smile. After Hanju read the text, he spoke out to the girl, making her very scared and upset about her possible loneliness. Interrupting the conversation between Changyuer and Hanju. Interested, the holy fairy looked at the guy and asked him to test his abilities and demonstrate spellcasting. Relenting to her request, the guy decided to show her the best of what he could do. Already summoning his magic, Hanju raised his hands up, whereupon a wide magical beam of fire cultivation flew out of them, bent into a boomerang shape. The sent fire beam strained straight towards Shiyuan. She looked forward, waiting for it to approach. Explosion! Saint Fairy looked at her future disciple with a satisfied look. A slight smile played on her face, and delicately pink petals or parishkas flew around. "He's actually not bad," were Changyur's words after the guy created a fire beam. Her eyes glistened and her mouth opened wide in surprise. At this moment, a virtual screen with Shiyuan's dossier suddenly appeared, which was amended about the stars, didn't understand and favoring Changyur. After Hanju's magical manipulations were done, Fairy Shiyuan asked about his other movements, to which she received a negative answer from the guy. After thinking for a bit, Shiyuan praised the guy and his sword movements. She allowed him to stay in the Jade Peak. Now she began to look at him with a smile and uneven favor. The full man was happy about this course of events, for now he was entitled to a vacation. He put his hand on Hanju's shoulder with a smile and started to walk away. "I believe you have high hopes for you." Shiyuan looks at the guy with a cold and somewhat indifferent gaze. In general, looks as if he's penetrating his soul. Seeing such an interesting look from her, the guy was startled as he didn't understand such a quick change in her mood. "Why is she looking at me like that?" Maybe, but his fears were in vain. Changyur merely walked up to him, kicked him in the back, causing him to fly down from the impact, and asked about his adoration for his mistress with a frightened look. In flight, the guy's mouth became the shape of an X, and his eyes became wide with narrow pupils. Kneeling down in front of Saint Shiyuan, Hanju began to bow, saying words of greeting to his now teacher. As he fell, a large cloud of dust formed from beneath his feet. Shiyuan became amused by his actions. "You think I'm an empress?" She then asked Changyur to escort Hanju to the intersect for his registration and equipment. "Yes, master." With those words, Changyur took the new disciple and started running, pulling Hanju behind her. The latter looked at her with a frightened and angry look. While running, the girl asked the guy if he could fly the sword, to which the guy replied that it was something he still needed to learn. In the distance, Saint Shiyuan watched the whole thing and reflected on the guy's behavior and temperament for the better. The girl eyed the guy on her sword and rushed into flight. Hanju clung tightly with his hands around her waist in fear. Changyur introduced herself to the guy, but said that he could also call her simply Big Sister, and if he doesn't know something, he can also go to her for help and information. With a mischievous look, the girl looked at the guy and smiled sweetly. There was a sparkle in her eyes. Next, the picture changed abruptly to the girl Changyur with her mouth wide open and a heart in the middle. Behind her stands Hanju with a frightened look and surprised by her emotions. Changyur has brought a guy to her place to show off her cave. In case of anything, Hanju will know where to go for her help. Afterward, the girl showed the guy his big room, room for changing clothes, a sort of blackboard on the wall. Under it a table with a vase and flowers. In the corner a cabinet with a set, a nightstand, a coat rack and a bed in the middle of the room. The bed is in the form of a rug and a mat, and there are 4 stumps around the edges. Behind the screen is Changyur's cave, which is right now peeking out from underneath it. After Hanju looked around his newfound room, he sighed heavily and thought that it would be better to involve his imagination. On his desk he already had a sword, flasks, emeralds, pouches, a cane, and a small ball. He began to think and take pride in his awareness and perfection of the power gap. Hanju decided to recall the information about Shiyuan. She is a cultivator in the nascent soul realm. He is dissatisfied that her level is out of his reach. Next, an image of a full man, a first elder, popped up in his mind. He is 1 step away from the golden core and can only become the oldest of the outer sect. The elder changed to the founder of the pure jade sect that long ago departed and did not return. A broad-shouldered man wearing a white shirt with wide sleeves, a green vest, and blonde hair, medium length. The realization came into Hanju's mind that Fairy Shiyuan had become the strongest cultivator he had ever known. Thoughts of Fairy were replaced by thoughts of her protection and support that he could depend on, and not think about possible trouble. Picking up a large stone near the cave, Hanju decided that he now needed to cultivate the power of his fire power to level 9. Unexpectedly, a virtual screen appeared in front of the guy congratulating him on becoming a disciple of the Jade Pure Sect and his first cultivation. Hanju's shouting of his master's ideas could almost be heard from the top of the mountain, a house near where the broad mountain stands, with steps to the inside of the cave. 3 years later, blue sky with light blue clouds floating by. At the end of 3 years of cultivation studies, Hanju decided that it's time to learn how to fly the sword to bypass the gate and stop depending on his older sister. A bow standing with a book in his hands, the technique of flying. Throwing the book aside, Hanju set about practicing flying down the mountain and leaving dust behind him. The flying sword technique is an easy cake. With my original sword ability and training, I can accomplish it with just a glance, is the advantage of a supreme talent. Folding his hands behind his back, the guy flew up on a beam of yellow color, and behind him flew the sword as well. The guy's cloak fluttered in the wind, and on the right side of the sky, another man flew. Hanju the young flyer was cut off from such an exciting activity, to which he responded with an angry look. Attempts to find Hing Han Wan in the dark, huge cave were in vain. After searching around, they could not find a single clue to the girl's presence there. The pursuers were told to inform headquarters that they had not found the girl in their active search, and that they had searched the cave without finding her or any trace of her. Hearing that the pursuers were leaving, Hing Han Huan came out of the bushes and finally exhaled, realizing that she had managed to hide so that she would not be found, and now she was free. The girl was glad that she could finally escape from this evil cult, but she didn't know what to do next. The only problem was that her identity was certainly recognized by everyone, and only Han Ru believed her, and for the first time in her life someone was standing up for her. A mean crow in a tree shouted "Car car red-headed crown" so that the pursuers could hear, because they were not far away, and it was hard not to hear the cry of this evil bird. Tin Hong Huan was confused and frightened, because she realized that her plan had failed, because of one small bird. The girl will not be able to get the desired freedom and escape to another life. The pursuers were instructed to use all means necessary to capture the girl, for such a sinner could not be spared, much less escape. Did not seen this woman for a long time. The last time he met her, he was not even 20 years old. But now he is 30 years old, and he was wondering why she was becoming more tender. What was wrong with her? Han Ru was dumbfounded and bewildered by how many functions the system has. And this system also has a personalized activity record function, which is very useful for them. Han Jui thought about the system and how it works. After so many years of thinking about the system, it was time to think about something else and focus on the fire chi right now. His thoughts were interrupted by the doorbell. Not realizing who was there, he went through all the possible options in his head. Han Jui went to open the door to the uninvited guest. Beautiful view of the city. Beautiful palaces, mountains, local historians, looking at which you can lose speech, forget all the words and thoughts in your head, enjoying the beautiful nature. When he looked out of the door, he asked the bell ringers what was going on there. On the threshold he saw a joyful and welcoming junior, with whom they had not seen for so long. The joyful junior suggested that they go together to meet the master, as they had not done it together for a long time, to check and find out everything from him. The junior was surprised that Han Jui had reached the earth creation sphere, to which he replied that it was just luck, laughing at the junior's fall. Han said that he had not even seen it grow. Han was excited that the junior could be better than him, which gave him the motivation to become better and develop more to be number one. He said that he promised to always protect his little sister. The system turned to Chang Yura and told him that she was down to 1.5 stars. Chang was in tears and panic. She said that she could not delay any longer and that explanations would be on the way. But Han only confirmed that the situation looked very abnormal and not credible. The jade bell at the top of the mountain does not usually ring more than once. It calls all the students to the master's call, which can be heard not often and for a reason. Chang Yur said that this is the first time the bell has been rung in many years, so it has never been rung before. All the participants were very excited about the call, because they were hoping that they would not have any problems and the bell was not rung for a serious reason. The picture changes to a huge, beautiful stone castle sprinkled with sand and covered with gentle sunlight, where all the students will be meeting with the master. The crowd began to discuss the spies who had already found themselves in their sect. To be extremely careful, was heard whispering from the crowd. This boy cult is really becoming more arrogant. Every time I go out to train, I contact these favorable disciples from the cult. The crowd of people, especially the girls, did not leave Han Rui unnoticed. From every nook and cranny came whispers of how handsome he was. Questions about when he would join Jade Serene Peak, why he had never been seen or met before. Liu Sangson asked Han if he was a new disciple of Zhu Kan. At first, Han didn't quite understand and was afraid of who was talking to him, and answered with a bit of uncertainty. A dialogue ensued between them. Liu Sangson, the chief disciple of Jade Mad Peak, came to meet him. A master doesn't like to take care of most of his affairs. Liu Sangson is the one who manages the peak instead of the master. All matters and their solution in the future can go through him at any time. After the nice conversation between the brothers, they smiled nicely at each other and thanked each other for the conversation and experience they shared with each other. Liu Sangson seemed very nice and friendly in Han Rui's eyes. The last 3 peaks of the 18 peaks would send their disciples to fight against the Bright Bottom cult. These young men often sent spies to plot against the Jade Pure sect. The sect master decided to prepare his fighters for a counterattack to avoid many casualties. Looking at the faces of the siblings as they were preparing for the counterattack, Han realized that they were not even anxious, as they acted as if they were preparing for an ordinary matter. There was calmness on their faces, confidence in their eyes, and professionalism in their movements. The mentor is not interested in victories, because this matter is handled by the invincible lower cult. It is likely that the pure Jade sect will fight against them. Liu Sangson said to be more attentive to the missions and remembered to contribute to their so-called sect. The disciples told the professor not to worry. The safe peak of Jade may be low, but they will always contribute to their sect. Recently, the sect has developed a cultivation program aimed at raising levels in each version. The disciples to pass it will be developed together and become the trump cards of the younger generation of the pure Jade sect. Liu Sangson was thinking about who to choose, because this program is designed for special disciples who will gain more knowledge and strength than others. Cousin whispers who would become the chosen disciple and get into the special training program, which will be the strongest disciple and the trump card of the young generation of the Jade Pure sect. When the students heard that Hanju had been chosen, they were stunned. The professor praised Han's skills and knowledge, and how quickly he had reached the 3rd level. Asking if he wanted to go to the development program, he heard a positive answer. Everyone began to shout outrage. Why the master did not choose the older brother Liu, and how can the younger brother participate in such a program if he is new here? The older brother was more suitable for the program. So the other students were so angry and indignant at the choice of the headmaster. Hanju had a question for the headmaster. The protagonist thanked the master for choosing him, but he also said that he wanted to stay at the peak of Jade serenity and cultivate in peace. Moreover, he said that he was just a new member in this area and such opportunities should only be given to older brothers and sisters. By the master's good attitude towards him, he thought that he suspected Han to be a spy of the non-nether cult, but he thought that it was better to be safe than sorry. It was better to refuse at once. The master asked him if he was sure of his choice, and he heard a positive answer. The choice went to Liu Sangson's older brother Liu Sangson, the first disciple of the Jade Serenity Peak, and hoped that he would not refuse. Liu Sangson was delighted with the offer, and he had no plans to refuse it. After judging Han's decision a little in his mind, Liu concluded that his motives and desires are difficult to predict. Moju said that such an opportunity and chance should not be missed, because such an opportunity is not offered to everyone, especially the headmaster. Moju said that in case of success, becoming rich and prosperous will not be a dream, but a common, ordinary thing for everyone who has set foot on such a path. Han Jui asked Moju to behave well, not to shout, and not to try to change his mind, because his decision is final, no matter what anyone tells him, but she did not like this scenario. Ignoring the pink-haired girl, who was yelling and mumbling under Han's arm, politely apologizing, he said that it was time for him to go back to his cultivation. Angry Moju continued to insist, shouting that he didn't listen to her, because he was missing the opportunity to become successful and rich and to go through a special program. When Moju opened her eyes after a million tries, she didn't see Han. Where did he go? She shouted loudly, hoping to get an answer, but it was in vain. With a sigh of relief, Han hoped that the annoying girl wouldn't find him, much less follow him. The 2 girls were discussing the man who had just passed by. The second girl added that she was sorry she couldn't ask what peak the student was from. Han hid behind the wall at this time, and eavesdropped on their conversation. While hiding in the bushes, Han heard that the girls also thought that he was much more tame and fit than Mo Kiki from last year's intersect competition. Suddenly, he remembered about the intersect competition. While he was cultivating, he had completely let things slip out of his mind. Master definitely won't let him go for this, he thought. Han apologized to Master for missing the competition because of his cultivation. The Master said not to blame himself, for he would have many more opportunities, like this one. Master asked Han why his cultivation level was stuck at the 3rd level of foundation building. After so much work and development, Han corrected the Master, saying that he was already at the 9th level of the foundation sphere. He just wanted to be inconspicuous, so he hit his cultivation level. If everyone at Jade Serenity Peak was as hardworking as him, Jade Serenity Peak would definitely become the strongest peak of the Jade Purity sect. Han stated that the disciple just enjoyed cultivating in the world. Suddenly, he felt a strange sensation and realized that there was someone else here besides him. In absolute silence, the Master enjoyed and marveled at the leaves falling from nowhere, and the room took on a fairy tale beauty. With great wonder and a smile, Han stood in the middle of the room trying to observe the mesmerizing activities around him. Without taking his eyes off the beauty around him, Han asked the Master why and how the leaves were falling in the room. From the walls of the majestic palace, resounding shouts sounded. It was Hanju and Ire. The girl noticed that the guys knew each other before, to which Han and Ire replied that they knew each other much more than she could imagine. The shocked long-time acquaintances sat silently side by side. The girl said that Han Jui was the new disciple of Jade Serenity Peak, and that she could just call him Junior Iron. Han replied that he dare not call him that. Junior Iron was curious as to how Han had become a disciple of the inner sect and had received such an important offer from the headmaster. The master was surprised by Han's ability, because he had no spiritual roots, and the test cannot be false. Took the master more than 20 years to break into the realm of foundation creation, and the fact that the boy was able to fly straight to the 9th level of foundation creation greatly angered the master. The master was surprised by the expression on his younger brother's face. He stood there bewildered and unable to understand anything that was going on around him. The younger brother Hanju is the genius of our peak, and no one is allowed to add any crooked thoughts about him. Everyone obediently bowed their heads in agreement and listened to the elder sister. Master said that this was the right time to get down to business, because according to the stories, Han likes to cultivate so much. Han thought about it and told the master that, in his opinion, all he was doing was messing up the missions of guarding the 10,000 demons of the Jade Clear sect. Moju said that she also wanted to go to the Jade Pure sect's place where the sect cultivates its beasts. The girl asked the master to accompany the junior Khan so that he wouldn't get lost. The master forbade, because this place is very dangerous. Some animals go crazy and kill students. Khan was afraid and a little bit tense, because the master said this, not even hiding the danger that could happen to him. The master warned that there is no need to be afraid. Every peak sends disciples to guard the demon realm. Also, there is always spirit chi. This place is ideal for cultivation, and the dangers there can be overcome if you pay attention to everything around you. Han didn't have a chance to refuse, but thinking that he was just a zookeeper, he decided that he wasn't afraid of anything and would easily do whatever he needed to do. He decided to start preparing for his stay there. Someone will come and take him away with them, and by that time, he should be ready and prepared. The older sister, of her own volition, decided to help Han get ready mentally and prepare everything he needed for his safe stay there. Master said that you can have confidence in Han and that he will not plot against you or try to harm you, because Hanju is a future disciple of the Jade sect. The elder brother was surprised by the master's words that Han will be a disciple of the sect in the future. But still, he agreed that with his talents, knowledge and abilities, Han deserves such an honor, because the master would not just say such a good thing about an ordinary disciple. Beautifully beautiful, rocky terrain, which simply fades against the background of a mesmerizing sunset, the place where the protagonist finds himself. The protagonist has been there for a year and a half, developing his skills, learning new things, socializing with new people to become the pride of the Jade sect. After spending every day cultivating, the wind cultivation potential had finally reached the 6th level of the foundation realm. Except for that, the other roots were the same. Because Han was bored, he decided to explore and find out what other functions this system had. While Han was exploring the system, he received an alert about updating the interpersonal relationship. He was surprised and started to read the alert more thoughtfully. After lying down for a long time, he got up, stretched and realized that it was time for him to go to training. because lying down, the cultivation potency would not rise on its own. Chang Yu said that although the demon realm was a good place to cultivate, it should be checked every time to avoid any problems caused by the monster's rebellion. At the training session, Han behaved lazily and was in constant thought, trying to just kill the training time. After deciding to walk around the area, the hero began to look at every little thing. Beautiful nature, animals. Seeing one small creature in a tree, he said that it did not look dangerous, a small, cute creature. The beast's eyes suddenly lit up, the smile disappeared from his face, and the animal began its magical evil behavior. Unsuspecting, Han walked merrily back to his room, not even realizing at that moment that the beast he had said didn't look dangerous was now turning into a monster. The animal's innocent, small paws turned into huge, immense hands. The body that could fit onto hands became the size of a huge mountain. Han felt the monster behind him, but kept calm, knowing what he would do. Because he was sure of himself, doing nothing when the animal went on the attack, Han decided to start acting behind the plans in his head. The cute animal attacked the hero in full force, but Han was able to fight back. Suddenly, he just disappeared from under the clutches of his huge opponent. Han was able to dodge the monster with the help of his abilities and jumped on the roof of the building to think about his next move. The skull monster was waiting for Han to come downstairs to finish what he had started and tear Han apart. Luckily, Han had mastered the 7 illusory steps, otherwise it could have been dangerous to Han's life. Since this demon is not simple, Han needs to get serious. Han jumps down from his hiding place to deal with the ferocious monster who wants him dead. Han used his 7 illusionary steps technique. Each layer of this movement technique can create one afterimage, and the 7th layer can create 7 such afterimages. This can weightily increase speed and surprise an enemy surprised by this technique. Warning: all it can bypass forbidding spells and will be as fast as you in terms of speed estimation. The monster began to close in on Han. Han was able to fight back against the demon thanks to his serious technique, which he had acquired through years of diligent study. But the beast had no plans to retreat, no matter how serious the attack on him. Han cloned himself. Surprised at what was happening, the demon couldn't figure out where the real opponent was. Apparently Han was going to attack. Confident, Han put 2 fingers to his forehead and uttered the name of his promising technique, the Absolute Finger Divine Sword. All of Han's clones pounced on the beast, with a blazing attack leaping at the shocked beast. Not realizing what was just happening, the glittering clone attack from Han blinded the eyes of the beast, who didn't realize if he would survive this attack or if it would be fatal to him. The monster was blinded by Khan's attack and was nearly incapacitated and exhausted after so much time. One by one, the animal was wounded by this attack. Khan persistently attacked the enemy. The animal felt only inaction, and Khan felt a surge of strength and energy from the fight. Unfortunately, only the main body could do so much damage, because if the clone had the same amount of damage, the animal would have died. But it was lucky to give up and just run away of attack. But he was lucky that the animal was probably of weak origin, because if it had been otherwise, this innocent, sweet cat would not have been affected by even the strongest spells he knew. It seemed to him that it was luck that played a bigger role in the fight, because if it hadn't been for it, no one knows how the fight would have ended. Han said that the recent riots of demonic beasts must have been caused by this little guy, and he decided that he should tell the petty officer about the situation. Announced that these scoundrels are involved in this case. One of the masters is afraid that they want to use demonic beasts from the 10,000 demonic kingdom, that there would be more destruction. Another master supported the words, adding that the sect has recently purged more than 30 of their spies. The question of why they do not send more students to the demon realm in case something happens. There are also suspicions that there are traitors among the higher-ups. The headmaster agreed and said that with the departure of the sect leader, the demonic beasts have been on a constant rampage. He said loudly that these 2 things should be scrutinized, as the entire assembly finds something strange about it. The master angrily began to lash out at the older sister for her silence, and the girl was very confused, hearing only accusations of silence from her sister. The accusations did not stop. The masters all thought that the older sister knows something. The girl said that the problem could be in the genius training program, where the main disciples of the 18 pixies went together with the sect master. The older sister proved her innocence because he's the one who's cultivating the geniuses. The younger brother agreed with the girl's words, for they were indeed taught by the same teacher. They agreed that teamwork is the best thing in this situation, and as a matter of urgency, they agreed to send additional students to the realm of 10,000 demons for support. Years later, the same place, the same land, the place where all the masters gather again and again. The forbidding spells common in the demon realm are quite good, suitable for cultivation as well as rest and patrol. The strength of each spiritual root in Han's body has reached level 6. Moreover, even without entering the Golden Core realm, Han no longer needs to fear the demonic beasts and enemies in the Golden Core realm. When asked about Khan using the 10,000 demon realm as his training ground, he agreed, mockingly joking about what else it could be used for. Han was surprised that anyone spoke to him, for he had put up a circle of protection and was fully confident in his solitude, which he had no plans to end. Was it Kingsley? Han still could not understand how he entered without affecting his forbidding spell. This could only happen if he was above the Golden Core, which surprised Han even more. Han couldn't take his eyes off of Lee Kinsey sitting on the ground. Lee Kinsey in turn continued to stand beside Han, hoping to calm his violent reaction. Lee Kinsey asked Han not to panic, saying that he was also a disciple of the sect, sent here to look after the 10,000 demon realm. Lee Kinsey noticed that Han was at the 3rd level of foundation establishment, but looking at his speed, one would realize that he was at the 9th level of foundation establishment. Han was shocked that the stranger was able to guess his ability level. Asking more questions to get to know the boy, Lee Qingzi asked whether Han had been sent here of his own free will, or if the master had sent him unwillingly. The boy confessed that it was not his will to go to this place, because after hearing the stories about how dangerous it is here, he decided that his life is more important to him. Lee Kinsey was surprised that Han wasn't here of his own free will. He was more and more curious, and this time, he asked if the master had given Han any assignments. The boy was surprised by Kinsey's curiosity and talkativeness. He didn't think it was necessary to tell him about the master's assignments, because it seemed strange to him. Lee Qingzi's insolence became more and more striking. He was too interested in the question about the assignment. When he didn't hear back from the ignoring boy, he decided to tell him and see if he knew what kind of trouble he was in. Han was a little angry at Kinsey's pestering, but he also wondered if there was a problem. He didn't know how to react to all the words, but he just sat there confused with his thoughts. Kinsey asked to be appreciated and said that he would help him with all his assignments, problems and questions for the sake of his teacher. Han saw that Kinsey was a lying old man who pretended to be a disciple. He also turned out to be the cult master, the head. Han's feelings and emotions were again confused. Even though he sensed something wrong in Kinsey's words and questions, he did not expect such a lie. In the cliffs they saw a crowd of beasts, of all sorts, coming and going. They both realized that soon they would all be berserk. All these beasts are subordinates of the heart of the white dragon tiger. Everyone should know that the white dragon with the tiger heart is always taking revenge and is the most cruel by nature. This time, he probably summoned all the animals to his house to make a big rebellion again. Kinsey was curious about how the white dragon with the tiger's heart had been provoked in the past. What they had done. He asked this with great interest, as if he had some kind of plan. Otherwise, why would he need this information? Kinsey noticed that he was lost in thought and not listening to him and his questions. So he called out to the boy, but there was silence. He was still sitting there thinking about something important. The character's thoughts were of Lee Kinsey trying to deal with his older sister with some sort of plan. In his mind, he saw his older sister with her shirt down, standing next to Lee Kinsey, each thought making him angrier and angrier. The thought of their lips touching confused Han, and he said he would never let that happen to his older sister. A small spider ran across the sand near them. Han started to tell the story of what happened 2 years ago, but Lee interrupted him with emotion. Kinsey began to tell them that the phenomenon of beasts entering the berserk earlier than they expected was not caused by them. It was probably caused by the lower cult. The showdown between the Jade sect and the White Dragon Tiger Heart must have been one of the incidents caused by them. The sect was very lucky because the Demon King could fall into their trap and consume their power. Otherwise he would be dead now. Kinsey was most interested in the technique used by the Jade sect, because it was even faster than the White Dragon Tiger Heart. Han explained that his movement technique is already used to him, because it is normal for him to be faster. Lee was shocked. How can it be normal? Because it is a Demon King, and if we talk about speed, even the Golden Core Master couldn't beat it. Kinsey said that the priority at the moment is to fight the beasts that want to become berserk. But if they want to become berserk, they should deal with the reasons why. Han thought it was about killing those beasts, so he asked if his thoughts were in line with the present plan of action. Li said that there was no reason to kill, because the Demon King had so much potential and it would be too hard to compensate for killing him. Han asked what the plan was, how they could do without killing, but solve the problem. Kinsey explained that it could be a happy reason why the master sent him to the kingdom of 10,000 demons, most likely to receive great merit. Han's skills, as it turned out, is not so simple, because he can safely retreat when faced with a white dragon tiger heart. Warned Han that he should have a couple of tricks up his sleeve and offered to show and teach him them. Kinsey said he would teach Han everything he knows so that he could have some tricks up his sleeve. Han refused the offer, explaining that he only wanted to cultivate, because he was not interested in other things. There were so many animals around. He was interested in how to tame at least one of them. He would help him tame the animal with the equipment, but he defended his own, saying that if he could tame the white dragon with the heart of a tiger, he would give Han the pure jade sect technique. He told Obo not to be tempted, as all the techniques he would teach him are from the system's mission manual. Han was still not interested in any of Li's suggestions, so after politely apologizing and saying goodbye, he decided to just leave. Kinsey was outraged at how his little sister could take on such a student. He is stubborn and won't listen to any advice or instruction. Upset by Han's refusal to give up his opportunities, Kinsey returned to the Demon King and told the situation to agree with him. The Demon King said it was expected that Li would feel something, but he was also disappointed that he had let Han go without taking him in or finding out anything. He became angry and once again became an invincible monster. Kinsey was scared of the Demon King, but he knew what he was doing, so he stood still and watched. The face of the angry Demon King appeared across the sky, and the power and might was felt all around. Chang Yu was going somewhere with her younger brother through the beautiful countryside. Chang's older sister said that according to the master in the 10,000 demon realm, the beasts were going berserk and that she needed to meet with Han urgently. When she heard a strange sound ahead, she said that she should stop. The sound was getting closer and scarier. She could not understand what it was. They were both dumbfounded when they saw what was behind the scary, distant sounds. Initially they thought the sounds were caused by a berserk beast, but as it turned out, it was more like a disembodied sword technique. The trees of the forest that the two heroes were walking through had been cut down, leaving only small stumps of wood around them. The older sister was too quick to reach her younger brother and called for Han as soon as possible. She happily shouted surprise, saying that they hadn't seen each other in a long time, and she missed him, so she decided to visit her little brother and make him happy. Manhwa introduced himself to Han, saying it was a pleasure to meet and be around such a person. Han reciprocated and said he was very happy to see them. The situation, Meng said, I am the 7th elder brother of Jade Peak Madness, 9th level of foundation creation. Such a characteristic surprised the guy. He didn't think that he was a strong hero. He drew Han's attention to the felled trees in the forest, deciding to ask him what had happened there that was so terrible. Han replied that he was surrounded by a pack of demonic beasts, and luckily the elder came to his rescue. A worried he pondered what he had heard and what was happening in that forest, and was about to tell his conclusions about it all. He realized that the situation in the 10,000 demon realm was not good at all. Since that was the case, he decided to explore their dangerous environment right now. He told his younger sister to stay with Han and rest while he was in the forest. Han and the younger sister decided to have a tea party and talk about the whole situation, that he might be in mortal danger, so she asked the younger sister and Menghe to come to Han. It is said that the healthy cult of the lower can already penetrate into the realm of 10,000 demons. The girl advised Han to be more careful. This healthy cult, it was not at all good that Han had attracted their attention. Han thought that maybe that's why the sect master Li Qingzi is here. Looking at his tea, Han thought about how the realm of the 10,000 demons was filled with secrets. Han turned to his older sister, who was sitting sipping her tea. The thought of leaving the kingdom of 10,000 demons arose, which shocked Han beyond belief. But suddenly the girl changed her mind, saying it was desertion. Suddenly interrupting their quiet tea party, a wounded Menghe burst in, shouting for them to hurry up and activate the defense barrier. Menghe told them that he had encountered an extremely huge demonic beast that had mauled the warrior, nearly taking his life. Han and the girl wondered how the demonic beast recognized Menghe, and realized that judging by its size it was probably a golden core. and he told Han that he had seen a group of demonic beasts that were imprisoned in the array from far away. But just as he was about to head back to the team, he encountered the golden core demon Nanai. Before he could finish his sentence, Menghi started coughing up blood, and Han asked the injured man to keep quiet, saying that they needed to quickly go back and heal Menghi. The girl noticed that not much time had passed since they arrived here, and Menghi was already seriously injured. This 10,000 demon realm is indeed a cruel place. It's not surprising that Han wants to leave this place. But why has he been here for so long without any serious problems? The girl pondered. Indeed, one should not wander in this crazy wilderness. Menghi is the living proof of these words. Han asked to wait for his younger brother and sister, for he noticed the presence of the demonic beasts is getting stronger and stronger. They are moving incredibly fast towards us, Han stated. The demonic beasts were heading towards the heroes at an insane speed, destroying everything in their path. The demonic beasts were driven only by mad hatred and anger that could be felt throughout the forest. These invincible demonic beasts were already near the hut where the frightened heroes were waiting for the inevitable. With such a huge number of beasts in the berserk, Meng doubted that this barrier would hold them all back. After all, such a crowd was very hard to stop. Meng wondered what they were waiting for and why they didn't run away if the barrier couldn't withstand such a large number of animals. The boy thought that the best solution was to just run away to avoid anything bad. The older sister said that running away would be considered as leaving the post without consent, because this place is directly under the jurisdiction of Jade Serene Peak. Younger brother Han was outraged and said that they could stay and just sit and wait for their deaths, and he would tell the teacher what heroes they were and their heroic deeds. Chen was angry with his brother because he would not listen to her and was stubborn. Meng agreed with the words of his younger brother, because each of the 18 peaks has a control point, and they are certainly not the only ones who will be attacked by the wave of beasts. Other people will also run away, as long as there is a chance and hope to survive. We must run to save ourselves and innocent life. Screams and noises came from everywhere, and the animals went from berserk to attack. As mentioned earlier, the small, weak, wooden barrier could not withstand the crowd of angry animals, and with a cracking nose, it was torn down, leaving not a single piece of wood. The demonic beasts do not stop even after stomping on the pavilion. The brothers and sisters realized that the animals' goal is not them. The sister thought that their path is just passing through them. Maybe the Isvin cult has invented some new scheme. Han felt the arrival of some strong demonic aura that tensed him up, and he had a strange sensation. A huge beast in the sky that took your breath away appeared in front of the heroes. An eagle with the size of the whole sky, wings that with one flap cover everything around, a huge beak, predatory and self-confident eyes. Grabbing his older sister in his arms, Han said that the golden core giant was above them. Manhwa managed to escape. A coward decided to abandon his team, and without saying a word just ran away. Han was excited and frightened, not knowing what to do next, with his older sister in his arms. There were 6 huge eagles flying in the sky and only one was missing. The lightning-fast bird with a predatory stare looked at who would fall prey to its huge wings. As the older sister and younger brother realized where they were going, Chang tearfully said they were doomed. 3 Pure Shadow Sword Technique. This is the ultimate sword technique that I was rewarded with for rejecting the sect Han filled with power to protect the life of his sister and him. Han began to explain the technique and how it can turn his sword Ji into a sword shadow using a maximum of 3 different attributes can become a sword shadow. It can be used continuously until the user's spiritual energy runs out. With his older sister back on her feet, Han began to defend himself with his technique. His eyes filled with the desire to win. His body strengthened, and he resolved his feelings of fear. Chang sat on the ground with her legs tucked under her, watching Han's actions. Chen found her brother's actions impossible. This was the golden core of the demonic beast kingdom. If she hadn't seen everything with her own eyes at that moment, no one would have believed her words. How strong her younger brother Han really was. The actions that were happening before her eyes each time more and more shocked and delighted the girl. She wondered how it was that her little brother had destroyed the invincible 1 golden demonic beast and 6 demonic beasts. The picture before her eyes was amazing and the thoughts in her head were confusing her more and more. All the enemies were destroyed. The sky was covered in feathers, but the birds were gone. Han himself stood in shock at his abilities and realized that he had finally done it. He had protected his sister and himself using a special technique. Looked around and realized that it was to his credit that he had destroyed the enemies, and his gaze fell on his frightened sister, who was sitting with her legs tucked up and looking at her older brother. Han's cold eyes, Chen didn't recognize her brother in them. He looked so coldly that every now and then the thought came into her mind, is this even the brother I've known for so long? As she pushed the bad thoughts out of her head, she realized how cool and majestic he looked against the rocks. The victor who had done the almost impossible. After receiving the huge catch from the beasts, Han wanted to exchange them for the spiritual stones he had heard about earlier, and her only thought was bring back my little brother. Although she was happy for the victory and the development of Han's powers, but for some reason she wanted everything to be the same as before. The conversation on the way home between the heroes was not exactly friendly. Chen was interested in how he was going to apologize to the master. Chen said that they would go together because she wanted to complain to the master about how the hero was overloaded with tasks. Meng teleported his younger brother and sister and couldn't hold back the tears of seeing them. He was happy that he could see them alive and intact, because after such a fight, he had doubts about this meeting. His sister kicked him angrily. She was not interested in words of mercy, for she was angry that he had left the two of them and without saying anything just ran away. Without stopping, she shouted accusations at Meng, but he just apologized. Han said not to hurry with beating this traitor. They will have time, and before he meets the master, he must go to the formation to get the spirit stones. Cheng said he should wait for her and she would go with him. Han never chose the path he took this time. Han now had a full supply of spirit stones that he was originally worried about, which came from cultivating to reach the foundation realm. Han has realized that killing beasts is profitable, as it gives him too much to exchange for spirit stones. Han sold the materials for 397 top-quality spirit stones and suddenly had the urge to go back, because it gives him so much money. But his older sister said she wouldn't allow it, so she told him not to even think about it. Normally, the kingdom of 10,000 demons is a small world specially created to raise the beasts inside. Are valuable, and under normal circumstances, students are strictly forbidden to kill them. But this time was a special situation. Han had to do so, otherwise 2 innocent lives would have been harmed, and they should not be held responsible for that. Han thought it would be better for him to stay in the compartment and cultivate as usual. The spirit stones would slowly accumulate anyway, but the residual amount would be enough to break through the golden core. The team returned to the master. He was surprised, because no one gave them permission or penalties to return. The master thoughtfully sat there and didn't even know what to say, because this was the meeting he didn't expect. Han began to apologize and told the master that the kingdom of 10,000 demons not only saw demonic beasts performing, but also the people of the famous cult had infiltrated there. The elder sister tried to support her younger brother and said that as a disciple, he really should not be left there anymore. She was ready to give in to the punishment herself, join the cult and repent for another 100 years. The master asked what would happen if he was forbidden from practicing his favorite occupation and stopped cultivating for 100 years. Han tensed up when he heard this, because cultivation was his favorite occupation and he didn't want to lose it. Cheng was angry at the master, because he thought that his younger brother should not be punished for something he had nothing to do with. Continued to say that it was not their fault in this situation, because even the 7th elder brother Meng abandoned them when the beasts started attacking and cowardly ran away without saying a word. The master continued to protect Meng, as their weakness held them back in the end, and they decided to stay there themselves. Compared to 3 people dying together, it is better for one person to survive through such a betrayal. Chan was in a stupor and didn't understand why the master was defending him so vigorously, because what he had done to the team was very disrespectful to him. Justifying Meng that he did not violate the rules of the sect, he was just protecting himself, because his life is precious to him, and by this act he did not betray anyone and Meng can safely leave. They both didn't understand what the master was getting at in such a heated situation, but they were also angry that all the defense was on Meng's side. Han was hurt and unhappy that the master treats him like this. She doesn't single him out and doesn't appreciate the guy's skills at face value. He thinks that the master suspects him of something again. Leaning on his hands, he thinks about what he has been doing wrong all this time, and when he will be at peace. The master asked what Han was cultivating for. This stupid question seemed very strange to him. Why would she ask and find out about his ambitions? The hero answered that he was cultivating for a small sneer. The master said that he could not take advantage of the opportunities if he continued to cultivate in the branch. Moreover, she wondered how he would continue to live at this rate, and said that he understood. But he also explained that he wanted to increase his cultivation level much more, so that he would have enough skills and abilities to fight for opportunities in the future. Continued to explain that the master just didn't understand him, because he had unrivaled potential and for initial related offers, skills and abilities that would be useful in more than one battle. Master had prepared an opportunity for Han, and if he had achieved a lot in the realm of the 10,000 demons, he could have become the main apprentice in the future. But unfortunately, he gave up. Angry, the master began to say what she thought to Han, and that the cultivation technique he uses is incomprehensible, and she is not going to teach him anything because the hero is so stubborn. The master was surprised that Han wants to have a cave dwelling on par with the spiritual thunder pool. After all, he even has other kinds of spirit chi besides thunder spirit chi. Han was curious about the location of the thunder spirit pool. The guy was obviously up to something. The master said that the pool is located near the Jade Pure sect, but unfortunately or fortunately, only members of the inner sect can enter the pool. Han asked the master how dangerous this inner sect is, to which the master resented that he had the right to even think about the fear of fighting. After all, his life could be harmed by someone else. Han asked the master if under normal circumstances the Golden Core disciples participate there. Master asked Han whether he thought that the cultivators of the Golden Core realm were so famous, any of them could become a core disciple, elder, or deacon. Han interrogated the master, because in other words, all the participants are foundation cultivators, clenching her fists. The master agreed with Han's words. Han thanked the master for the advice and promised to do his best to become the best to win the face for Jade's serene peak. Han shouted out, "Abode of the Bound Cave, I accept this invitation." The master didn't believe Han wouldn't give in to the temptation in his way. Han arrived at the place in search of a boss. He wanted to cultivate a number of days equivalent to 100 spirit stones. According to what the teacher said, there were still approximately 8 years left before the sect's internal evaluation, so Han should utilize the remaining time properly by cultivating intensely. The teacher suggested that Han's place is in section A, number 4444. Han decided that he needed to think of a better way to make his development potential to peak in less time so that he could retain some spiritual stones. The passing girls one by one shouted compliments, admired the hero, wondered if this mysterious, handsome disciple could be from the Jade of Mute Peak. The girls remarked that they had never seen such a handsome guy before, so maybe he was the mysterious disciple. Hannah was not impressed by such attention from the girls. He thought that they were so low that they didn't even know how to appreciate the joy of perfection. The next journey, transportation to the spiritual pool of Wing. As expected from the sect, they have all kinds of spiritual pools. The enchanting environment of the Wind spiritual pool is much better than the Thunder spiritual pool. Beautiful views, variety of birds, rocky terrain. Han said that he should make all of his 6 development potentials reach the 9th level of foundation, building before the inner establishment. He needs it for himself, because he wants to become stronger and more experienced. When Han was distracted from his thoughts, he noticed that something strange was going on around him. He looked around the area and tried to find out what had interrupted his thoughts and disturbed him. He saw a huge crowd of men standing around, laughing loudly, talking and discussing vigorously. One phrase could be heard from the crowd, "Not bad, Zhou Fang." A guy in the crowd asked Zhou Fan, didn't he say that he would surpass them in the next intersect evaluation? So why isn't he still at the first level of foundation establishment? The men laughed at him and teased him. How could he surpass them with such development potential? The taunts crossed the boundary of what was allowed, a crowd against one man. It was no longer the right decision among the brothers. His brother said that if Zhou wanted to kneel before them, no one would forbid him. His younger sister and older brother are preparing. They are not around now, so no one can help him. Han wondered, why can't he defeat him now? He is again in such a confusing situation with so many people around and he needs to concentrate. Drown in self-discovery right now. Han found the other system of the sect strange and unfamiliar. Not thinking about anything, Han finished the last bites of fresh watermelon and then he received a new notification on the system. The message read, "A related providence has been detected. Check its origin." Han was surprised and at first he didn't understand what the related providence was. This alert made Khan think. The angry mob of men did not finish bullying Zhou Fang. Destruction. And the guys are trying to create internal strife. This gives Zhou Fang a good reason to question their loyalty. Suspect and inform the elders that these guys are spies of the devil cult. Zhou Fang didn't want to take it any further, so he began to tell his story. The reincarnation of a Mahayana cultivator. He was born in a city in the mortal world. He has been here with his beloved since he was a child when the Jade Pure sect discovered his spiritual root. In the depths of his soul is hidden an incredible treasure. And this treasure is badly wounded because it protected him. Now, to restore itself, the treasure is unconsciously absorbing Zhou's spirit. While he is cultivating, he is speeding it up. But now, in the environment and time he is in, his treasure will be quickly and successfully restored. Related providence. His background is actually fascinating and impressive. He could possibly have been the main novel of the story. And his backstory sounds painfully familiar. Don't tell me anything. He is a spiritual treasure as well. Han wondered if he should help Zhou Fang. One half of his thoughts were that he should, because he is the main protagonist, and if he helps him now, it will be of great benefit in the near future. The other half of his thoughts were that it's unnecessary, because he doesn't know the number of side characters dying because of the main protagonist. Han decided that the best solution would be to forget all of this. After all, cultivation is much more important to him. He advised Zhou Fang to believe in himself and not to give up. Even if you are alone in the midst of a crowd of mockers. 8 years woke up in the morning and realized that he would stop here today. The internal evaluation of the sect was about to begin. Over this long period of time, Han's levels of potential had grown as well as his knowledge and skills. Water, Earth Cultivation Potential Foundation Establishment Level 8. Fire, Thunder, Wine and Wood Cultivation Potential Foundation, Establishment Level 9. With such progress, Han was determined and confident of a good internal evaluation of the sect. Going outside, where the weather was just fine, something caught the hero's attention. Han saw a familiar but dejected Zhou Fang there. Zhou Fang was too disappointed and upset, so he just silently lowered his eyes to the floor. Putting his hand on the stone, the birds around Zhou abruptly rose up and surrounded them. Still standing in silence, Han was tense. He did not understand what was happening to him and why everything was so strange. He had just come out into the street. Zhou apologized to Han, telling him that he was really good. The guy just as silently just walked away after listening to everything Zhou had to say. That's yours, Zhou Fang remarked. He advised to focus on cultivation properly so that there would be fewer headache problems. Zhou asked Han to stop here, near the brick wall. The guy only had one question in his mind. What does he want me to do? Han asked what he wanted from asked, are you perhaps Hanju? The guy said that's exactly who he was and politely asked what he wanted. Maybe help or something. Zhou, is a great and devoted fan of Heavenly Thunder. Senior Mo often mentioned him. He said that he would definitely become a powerful cultivator of the Jade Pure sect in the future. Senior brother Mo was shouted out and asked the same question. What did he do? Looking at his position at the moment, based on how rapidly the cultivation novels were ascending, he couldn't believe it all. Han stood looking at the slowly falling leaf on the ground. In the silence he only saw Zhou fall to his knees. He had heard about his popularity among girls and always wondered the same question. How to get into a girl's heart. An unpleasant situation was brewing for both parties. With a sly grin he shouted loudly. He thought they were going to fight. He begged demandingly, shouted to enlighten him. Khan said he should let it go and just enjoy life, because that's exactly what Khan was doing. Not even knowing that he'd be getting so much attention from the opposite sex in the future. How could they, the cultivators, fall into such a tricky trap as love? If girls could get a great man like Dao, the world would be under their command. Han said that it would be better to listen to everything he said, for it would be more useful to him than thinking about girls. Zhou felt the movement and beating of his heart, which had just died. He thought it was over, but it wasn't. Han was angry that he compared their looks, because the main character has a little bit of ego. A new notification came to the system. Zhou fans have a good impression of you. Current preference 1 star. Han became too funny with the situation around. And again in the clear sky, the same bell ringing could be heard. The students around were tense. Even the birds scattered when they heard this alarming and ringing bell. The masters called all the disciples together again. Han thought that the reason for all the commotion was the internal evaluation of the sect. After all, lately everything was quiet and the disciples did not get involved and did not cause any problems. As Han was walking up the stairs with the other disciples of the sect hurrying upwards, unexpectedly, Han was barely caught up with by an older sect brother who had already met Han. Surprised at what had happened, Han greeted the long-unseen acquaintance, and they went further up the stairs, but already together. Climbing the stairs to the gathering of all the disciples of the sect, Han's longtime acquaintance asked permission if he could ask some question to the still uncomprehending Han, to which he hesitantly of course gave permission for a question from the sect's elder brother without stopping on the way up. The sect elder brother, long familiar to Han, asked Han with a mysterious hidden smile whether he knew a certain woman named Xing Han Xuan, not in the least surprised at the sect elder brother's words. And there was no way again how he knew of his acquaintance with this woman Xing Han Xuan, whose acquaintance was not known to many people. Han did not understand why his older brother was asking him such rather strange questions. On why we are all harmless is because of the information provided by the converted cult spy. Due to the repeated information, the sect master created a case and was able to leave the Jade Purity sect, though was actually going to ambush the cult in the 10,000 demon realm. Han's longtime acquaintance revealed that this brother was really madly happy that he had become their elder brother, and also added that this converted spy of the healthy nether cult was Xing Han Xuan. The girl was forced to take poison at a young age and through threats was forced to join the pure Jade sect under the conditions of a spy, added Han's old acquaintance. An agitated Han decided to ponder over all the words said by his old acquaintance of the sect's elder brother, turning his head slightly away from his acquaintance, scratching his head a little. The longtime sect elder brother acquaintance added to his words told Han that the girl Xing Han Xuan absolutely always disliked and hated this whole thing that happened to her, and once even tried to steal a recipe from an alchemist from outside the sect, risking her own life to find an antidote that would free her from such an endeavor. CT on the girl Xing Han Xuan, and came to this conclusion that this girl is insanely good at distinguishing right from wrong and refuses any darkness that may exist, and is all about seeking the light. Eng's story that later Xing Han Xuan was saved by the sect master for her meritorious actions. A little later the sect master made an exception and allowed the saved girl to become an inner sect disciple. Sweating in surprise, Han complimented what the sect elder brother had said, that Xing Han Xuan is so amazing, she is absolutely a valid model for my generation, with pride. Han said proudly. An old acquaintance and also an older sect brother said that the girl Xing Han Xuan is currently training under the younger sister of the sect master, Dao's Jingshu at the main peak. Earlier, when we met Xing Han Xuan, she was coloring about a disciple named Tanju, an alchemist's servant, told by an old acquaintance of Han's. Li Sangson said that on the Jade Crazy Peak they got the name of the disciple Hanju. The older brothers wondered if it was a coincidence. Han was a little worried and angry, because he thought that someone had blabbed everything. Despite promising to keep the secret, Han didn't take long to realize that he had better confess, for by lying and keeping silent he would only make things worse. I'm the Hanju she knows. He also confessed that at that moment he had no choice of action at all. Li Sangson said not to worry, that he understood the guy perfectly. He was just surprised by Han's cultivation potential, because it was rare to find such a progressive and diligent disciple who also loved it. Li Sangson told Han that it was a great honor that he chose Jade Mad Peak over traveling to a better teak. The senior team will try their best to give Han all the best resources, so that he will not worry about anything. Master said that she feels guilty for some reasons, but she also didn't expect him to have such a hard life, since they are doing well now. The master said she hopes that the woe will not face any more difficulties in the future. Announced that now the internal evaluation of the sect is about to begin. The students are very excited. Each one is worried about the result of their labors and each one of them hopes for the best. Each vertex had to send at least 10 disciples. When we asked for applicants, almost all of them responded. From all the disciples we could only hear take me, let me, may I, may I, may I. The choice was great, but each peak itself could determine those who wished, so as not to offend anyone. Everyone here had a joyful soul. Everyone was so eager to join the evaluation. But what reward would they get for it? The reward must not be small. Besides the inheritance of the Jade Pen, there were also 500 top-quality spirit stones and a spirit ice feast. The Jade Stream had a unique technique in it, a pure Jade Sect technique that could only be learned by the chosen few. He was beginning to wonder, is this it? No more memories of the Kindred Cave. There were thoughts that this was some kind of special reward from the master. They're all so enthusiastic. It's breathtaking. In the end, he just wanted to show his support, so people wouldn't think he wasn't in the same group. All eyes were on Hanju. He was chosen first, and there was a vote going on who else wanted to join. The sun rose from the west today, which meant that even Hanju would be participating. In an environment of full competition, he raised his hands to show support. But it worked the other way for him. The owner thought it didn't count and selected it for evaluation. The voting continued from there. A quota was set for them. He wanted Hanju to be left alone, while the others quickly left their seats. Master is going to have a private lesson together with his younger brother. An approving laughter sounded. Good talents will always get everything they want. So they left quickly, lest they make the master angry. During the class, the master praised him. He realized that he had underestimated his knowledge and that his cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. With only 3 attributes, he was still perfection. With outstanding pace, he was probably the most agile and fastest in the pure Jade sect. He smiled at the master's words, not forgetting to give thanks. He said that it was all the merit of the master's good teaching. The master is the best for him. There was an interesting dialogue going on between the two. He doesn't remember that there was a time when he gave him lessons and taught him something. Certainly, their methods and techniques are good, but perhaps because they are techniques not of the pure Jade sect. Looking straight into his eyes, she said that he had to learn it from another person. She knew that he was working hard and in no way wanted to damage the sect's security. A certain kind of person thinks that he was born in the outer sect, that is, outside the sect. What this meant was that he had tremendous opportunities when he was young. Everyone in this life is destined to face different opportunities, but sometimes hopelessness. But no one else is going to ask about that. He just wanted to share it. For the internal evaluation of the sect, the chosen one can demonstrate his strength without any worries. No one should be afraid of attracting trouble, and many thanks are said to the master. In order to avoid any problems and troubles, the master said that from now on Han is her personal disciple, and this is not up for discussion, because she has already made her own decision. Han was amazed that the master wanted him to be her personal apprentice. He was so surprised that he couldn't believe it for a few minutes. Am I now the personal apprentice of a supreme master? He thought for a long time, though his face was only stunned. That the master had given him this opportunity. Words of gratitude kept coming out of his mouth. He was so happy and grateful. You'd think he would fall to his knees and continue to praise the master. The master smiled for the first time in a long time, because she was so pleased that the apprentice had reacted so well to the teamwork. After all, to take a student is very responsible, and to find a common language with him even more so. The master gave Han a personalized jade medal. Han thought that this was the most beautiful moments of his life. Finally, he got what he had overcome, such a long and hard path filled with trials and different adventures. Now Khan is free to go. He took his medal and walked outside, clutching it in his hand. He had a tear of joy in his eye that he had achieved something he had never thought possible. Now he is a personal disciple of the greatest master. Apprentice, he had more desire to develop himself as a hero, more desire to become stronger and more successful in his work, not to embarrass the master, because she took him under her responsibility. Han practiced the third magic spell that he had learned. It is almost like a palm tree technique. The use of different spiritual energy can show different interesting results. Amazing new techniques and abilities have opened up for the protagonist. Now he can improve his skills more and more. Han realized that he now has more trump cards up his sleeve, even though he is not so close to the new one and not so familiar with it. What was important to him was that the skills and knowledge of the 3 pure sword techniques were in order, and he did not forget them. Han remembered the master's words that there was no limit to the attack, but he realized the destructive power of these 2 techniques and he should be careful with them. He saw that although he was gaining new knowledge, he simply could not use them all. His older sister came up to him, interrupted his thoughts and reminded him that it was time for the internal evaluation of the sect, and asked him if he was confident. The guy gave her a confused hello and said he was ready for today after all. The girl asked how Han had gotten here in the first place, to which the boy replied that it would remain a secret. The older sister asked how many times the main character was taking part in the internal evaluation, to which she learned that it was his first time. She showed the way with her hand and told him to follow her. The girl said that the master was afraid that Han didn't know about the rules. That's why the big sister was here to explain everything. She warned that the protagonist should know that there is an arena on all 18 peaks and all the disciples will go from peak to fight each other until there is a top 10. The fight will not stop, and then there will be a fight in the inner sect of the city where everyone in the sect can watch. The younger brother will have to fight on the peak of Cheonju. Han was happy that, until the fight reaches the top 10, no one will be able to watch his fight and actions. The girl thought that the younger brother wanted to get to the top 3 and he cared a lot about him. The older sister interrupted the thoughts and said that with the power that Han has, he will definitely be able to do what he wants. The older sister said that she urgently needed to inform the master about Han's attitude and aspiration, because this was his first battle of this kind, his first internal evaluation. The beau was pleased with the care and concern. Han was still thinking about the fact that during the fight, no one will see him, and this pleased the guy, because he can behave more restrained, because he does not want to take too much attention. A red-haired girl came up to Han. She looked gorgeous. With a smile she called him honey and lightly touched his shoulder. Han was startled by the smiling girl and quickly removed his hand. He shouted a request, "Miss, don't call me that." He clearly did not like the tactility and loud words from the red-haired girl in Han Huan. The girl did not stop smiling and reminded him of their arrangement when they were in the inner sect, although she did not know that their meeting would ever happen again, especially today. Han confusedly said that he did it because of fear. He was afraid that the girl would kill the young man without any regret because of his refusal. While he was saying this, cold sweat broke out on his face and worry appeared on his face as well as in his eyes. The girl began to whisper and smile and began to say that at that time she took everything seriously. With the help of Han's support, she was able to get her current status. She was grateful to the guy for everything, so she reminded him of everything that happened in the inner sect. She said that she had heard a lot of rumors about Han during the time they hadn't seen each other. Han started to say that technically, he was one step away from it, and because of his grades he couldn't do it earlier. He had never spoken with such emotion before. The girl was surprised to hear that he was one step away, because she probably thought he was already. Chen and Han were very surprised when they heard the bell, because it was the first time they had heard it in many years. So the older sister had not told them about the danger of the bell before. The brother and sister hoped that the bell would not cause any trouble, and they would not have any problems. The picture changes to a stone castle covered with sand and sheltered by gentle sunlight. The crowd began to condition the spies who had already turned out to be in their sect. "We must be extremely careful in recruiting disciples," was heard whispered from the crowd. "This boy cult is really becoming more and more arrogant. Every time I go out to train, I connect with these favorable disciples from the cult." As he walked past the crowd of girls, he could hear the admiration and compliments for him. The girls were heatedly discussing his identity and where he came from and why he had not been seen before. A guy he couldn't see because he was staring at the floor spoke to Han. He asked and expressed his suspicions that Han was the teacher's new student. The guy introduced himself to Han, who turned out to be the head disciple of Jade Mad Peak, Liu Sangson. Liu told the hero that the master doesn't like to take care of most of the things in the peak, so he is his substitute. He also said that Han can contact him anytime for any questions. Han thanked his older brother for his kindness and generosity and smiled and bowed to him. The master said that the last 3 peaks of the 18 peaks would send their disciples to fight against the vivid cult of Nihility. These young monsters had repeatedly sent spies to plot against the Jade Pure sect. The master decided to prepare for a counterattack this time. Looking at the expressions on the brothers' faces, it was clear that they were not alarmed at all, no matter who the enemy was. Han wondered why the lower 3 peaks were being sent to counterattack the enemy sect. The master said that he is not concerned about victories and rankings, because the lower cult is in charge of this matter. It is likely that the pure Jade sect will fight against them. The master also warned to be more careful in completing missions and reminded them not to forget to contribute to the sect. Liu Sangson said not to worry. He told the master that the Jade Peak may be low, but the contribution to the sect will always be there. The master said that the sect has recently developed a cultivation program targeting the most outstanding geniuses of each version. They will be trained together and become the trump cards of the younger generation of the pure Jade sect. Jinhu told the girl that she was sorry for handing the Jade Purity pill to the child. The red-haired girl explained to Dinghu that she had fallen into a love trap and Dinghu was wrong. Dinghu shouted that it was nothing and asked the red-haired girl if it was all just because of his looks or if she was wrong. The red-haired girl said that was reason enough. Dinghu said she felt she shouldn't help him because of that. The red-haired girl said that his abilities are also very outstanding, When she first saw him, he hadn't even started cultivating, and now after hearing from the sect master, she learned that he was already at the 9th level of the foundation establishment realm. This was strange news to Dinghu, and she didn't understand why she hadn't heard of him all these years. The red-haired woman said that she learned from the sect master that he maintained a low profile and improved in the branch. That was perhaps why Dinghu hadn't heard of him previously. The sect master even wanted to give him an opportunity, but he refused because he was afraid of death. Dinghu said that this is all interesting, and that it seems like the master should pay more attention to him. Han was surprised to hear the conversation. Han was indignant that she didn't say that they would only have a full audience when they reached the top 10. Han thought there wouldn't be that many people coming to watch. There were a lot of different characters with a lot of different abilities. Some were riding a bird, some were flying on their sword. Han didn't understand at all how he should act in this situation. Han said that the system understands him well. Living a low-profile life is much better and peaceful, and if everything goes smoothly, he can stay at a low profile until he becomes invincible. The first match was Hanju with Jade Serenity Peak against Lu Renjia with Tianju Peak. Han was told that the match was about to start. He should watch it. Maybe he would even realize something for himself and be better in the fight. The pink-haired girl noticed her older brother and said that he was incredible. He was incredible and she had no doubt that he could surprise the crowd. Han was surprised and shocked that it was already time for him to show himself in battle. The attacks and the fight around shocked the guy. He was confused and didn't know what to do now. Gathering his strength and himself, he went on the attack with other strong and brave opponents. One of the heroes from behind used a ground kick. The hero who was behind Han felt superiority over himself. He thought it would be too easy for him, because he felt sorry for Han, calling him a nub. In addition, he added that fighting with such new students does not give him a high at all. The spectators, who were watching the whole battle, became bored. They thought that it was pointless to watch this battle, because it is no longer interesting. The spectators judged that Han all the time only running and dodging blows, and they came to see the test of endurance. All Roseanne going to leave decided to watch the Battle of Len Denera. Mo was worried about her comrade. She could not believe that he could be so weak. Kan was madly worried about his success in this attack. The guy standing next to Mo said that he was doing it on purpose and that Han really wasn't that weak. After the men left, Han's mind went into overdrive and he gained more and more strength to attack the enemy. Han was angry and didn't like the fact that so many friends were watching and commenting on their battle. He thought it was wrong. He saw that there weren't so many people in the audience and he had a spark in his eyes. He was full of energy to continue the fight with a smirk on his face. He also saw that the judges watching the fight had fallen asleep. He quickly realized that now was the time, and he had a great chance. Looking at the audience and the judges who had fallen asleep during the fight, he didn't notice that his opponent had a sharp sword in his hand and it was already in him. The opponent was just saying how tired he was of this fight, because he didn't put any effort in his movements to beat him. He decided to finish Han right now. The guy threatened Han and gave him a warning. The excitement and smile on Khan's face. He was just sassing his opponent, saying that victory was only in his dreams, because Khan clearly thought he was invincible. The judges woke up and jumped at the sharp and loud sound. They thought that the fight was over and were ready to evaluate. The judges all thought that Khan had lost, but only saw his opponent's body fall to the damp, cold ground. The winner was Hanju from the Jade Mad Peak. His comrades in the audience cheered and rejoiced for their brother, but did not understand why he could not just win in a straight fight. Han calmly criticized Mo's words, but also said that he just needed time to understand his weaknesses to get this victory. Mo said she didn't like that Han was avoiding her, because he was making it so obvious that it hurt her feelings. Big Brother explained that Han is a hard-working cultivator, and he doesn't want anyone to slow him down on his path to perfection. Mo didn't understand the point of living life if he only focuses on creating and cultivating. His older brother said that everyone has different goals and if he has already chosen this path, it is a great gift. Told her brother that she feels a connection between him and Han, and that she has a feeling that they are the same person, to which her brother denied it and said that he is not the right person for him. A beautiful sunset that hid behind scattered pink clouds. Meditating, Han recalled everything that had happened to him. Until now he had defeated his opponents after most of the audience had left. Now that he was in the top 10, it would be harder to maintain a low profile. It's worth noting that for Zhou Fan, Getting into the top 10 was a shock. He felt that it would be better for him to get stronger now to avoid any incidents. Beautiful nature at sunset, dense forest in the sunlight, flowers about to open. Han was watching nature. He was speechless at the beauty of it all. Sitting in solitude with himself, everything around him turned black. The leaves around him rose up. Han noticed that there was no wind nose, but he was also afraid that he had been captured. Looking up into the black sky, he realized that he hadn't even noticed how the beautiful sunset was replaced by a black night sky with beautiful stars. Han's eyes lit up, provoking a violent reaction. A sudden impact on the ground. Han didn't even have time to react when he heard a loud bang. In the fight with his opponent, Han was confident and knew that he would leave no trace of his opponent. He saw that the attacker did not give up. He continued to attack Han, even though he saw that the hero was giving him a good fight and was determined. Miraculous action. The attack between Han and his opponent grew more and more. Sparks, smoke. The battle progressed with unreal speed, and just as quickly Han managed to defeat his enemy. Han realized that this monster had no intelligence, so he simply advised it to leave the place. A loud voice told him to stop, and after opening his eyes a little, Han stopped. As it turned out, the enemy was a great elder of the pure Jade sect. The elder was angry, shouting that such monsters could not be in the pure Jade sect. Most of all, he was amazed at Han's disrespectful attitude towards the elders. The hero stood still and marveled at what he had done. He felt too embarrassed to do anything. The foreman started cursing and shouting at Han. He said that just passing by he did not expect this, and Han allowed himself to use his technique in public, not following the rules and laws. Han asked why the petty officer was acting so suspiciously in the middle of the night. In a calm and disgruntled voice, the elder replied that he was simply developing a divine art. The elder wondered what he had just done, as it had almost destroyed his original spirit. The elder didn't think he could even endure it if he were there with his real body. He thought it was strange that all the disciples were so hard at work on their own cultivation today. Han said he had to tell the master about the attack because he was afraid of what he was doing. The elder tried to talk him out of it and just keep quiet. Han was also surprised that the elder knew his master, which changed the emotion on the hero's face in an instant. The elder said that Han's teacher was his student, as well as the current sect master. Han said that he would have to pretend that nothing had happened and said that the elder could leave now. The elder said with a smirk that Han was indeed too talented and offered to inherit his legacy. Han was surprised but asked what his legacy was. The elder suggested to try to cultivate the golden body of the celestial constellation. In the whole Jade Pure sect, only the elder and the sect master know about it. Han was very surprised because it was the first time he heard about the golden body of the celestial constellation, which impressed him a lot. Although he thanked Han, he refused the elder's offer. The elder was angry. He didn't like the rejection and decided to just leave. Han thought, he almost killed him just now and he was so nice to him. So what was the reason? Maybe the elder just had evil intentions. Han told the master and asked him what he thought about it and the situation. The master was a little angry and said that the old man was misbehaving again, but she said not to worry. She would find him. The master said she would deal with him personally if he ever came again. Han thanked the girl and went back to his room. When Han started to return, he suddenly remembered the celestial constellation of the golden body and wanted to know if the master knew about it. The master was surprised that Han knew about this technique, because it is the strongest technique in the pure Jade sect, which can stop the heart. However, those who want to learn it must cut off their roots. The boy asked about the roots, and the master told him that by the word roots they mean what makes him a man. Han said that he knew that this old man did not mean well and that he thought that the great elder and the sect leader had already lost their roots. The master said that this is a matter and that the information should not be spread. Han said he understood, so he left. He was surprised at how brave they were. To stay away from women they sacrificed what made them men. Inner city of the sect. The battle for the top 10 in the inner city of the sect has begun. The spectators have gathered and filled all the seats of the observers. The action moves to the inner city of the sect, where the battle for the top 10 in the sect's internal evaluation is about to begin. Spectators from all peaks have gathered here to watch such a great battle. To maintain the interest of the spectators, a man in a panda suit named Bing Domer came out to join them. The crowd shouted his name. Man came up for hugs. Han wondered how difficult it would be for him to act with so many spectators and fans. Han wondered if he should just get it over with quickly. Hing Hong-hwan suddenly approached Han, startling him. Hing Hong-hwan was glad that little brother was finally here. Behind the joyful Hing Hong-hwan stood a crowd of Han's fans who shouted words of encouragement and love for him. A surprised Han couldn't say a word. Han thanked his loving fans for their words of support, and also promised all of them to do their best not to disappoint his fans. An unidentified white-haired guy stood in the distance and watched Han surrounded by his fans. It was clear from the unknown white-haired guy's face that he wasn't happy about something. "Zhou Fang, you are the strongest opponent in this assessment of Hanju," said the white-haired stranger while continuing to look at Han. Another purple-haired guy said that Han was hiding his strength, and he is not below the elite disciples of their sect. The white-haired guy said that all of this may not be true, and that he is definitely no match for him since he now has a powerful trump card. Suddenly, the white-haired guy saw something that made him madly very surprised. Mo walked up to Han. She shouted to her brother Han that she madly believed that he would definitely take first place in this competition. Chang didn't realize who was standing in front of him yelling something to Han. The girl looked at Mo in disgust, expecting a response from her. Mo replied to Chang that she had no business being there. Chang replied that she thought Mo better grow up a little more, otherwise, little brother Han might go to jail. Hing Hong-hwan appeared between the two squabbling girls and called Han cute, causing the girls to stop arguing and find a new target. The girls immediately switched to Hing Hong-hwan and started arguing with her, asking her who she thought she was to call Han cute. Hing Hong-hwan replied that she calls Han that by his own consent. Sitting next to the girls was a desperate Han, trying to accept this disaster happening next to him. The man yelled for everyone to shut up. They are about to start the evaluation of the top 10 intermechs. The first match is about to begin. The man running the competition was about to start the first match of the best 10 intermech. As it turned out, the battle of the heroes would be between Hanju from the Jade Serene Peak versus Zhou Fang from the Heavenly Thunder Peak. Before the battle, they met with a glance. The people in the audience were surprised to see a star in front of them, Zhou Fang himself from the Celestial Thunder Peak. They were discussing Zhou Fang, who had received the Dharma treasure. Zhou Fang was also considered the trash of the Heavenly Thunder, and in the battle, he defeated his opponent in a matter of seconds. The brother said that he heard that the first disciple of the Peak Sword announced that if Zhou Fang managed to enter the top 3, he would accept his summoning with their companions on the line. Zhou said that he thought Han had never gotten close to any girl. Han, with worry in his voice and a feeling of cold sweat, said that he never wanted it and that he was desperate for it. After talking to Han, Zhou suddenly became angry. Maybe he didn't like something, but a sinister smile appeared on his face. With angry eyes and a sinister smile, Zhou attacked Han, saying that he would have to give up everything. He whirled his attack and ordered Han to give everything he had or he would regret it. Han stood in a stupor, gathering his thoughts and strength, and did not understand what was about to happen and what he had to give him. With a smirk, Zhou welcomed the hero to the first strike and told him to join and continue the fight. Han, on the other hand, was confident of his victory and pulled to take it all on himself. The head referee announced to everyone to get ready, because now the battle can begin. Han was ready, but at the moment he looked at his opponent, who was standing there puzzled and thinking about something. He was so confident that he assured Zhou of victory with a single blow. The desire for victory, for revenge, filled Han's eyes, his smile. He only told his enemy to get ready. He felt what others were saying. He was frightened by these sensations, feelings and incomprehensible emotions that he felt at the moment of Khan's attack. Mo Fushu, as the main disciple of the Celestial Thunderbolt, has no doubts about his abilities, and Hanju is one of the few people he has recognized. His brother said that he is in no way equating him and his brother Han. He is inscrutable and should be seen as a rival, not an enemy. The brother said that if they got a chance to exchange techniques with brother Han, it would be very favorable for Zhou. After all, the latter has an extraordinary talent and should be a model for many. But the brother said that he could not accept it. Zhou was sure that today he would defeat Han. The brother said that he would decide his own fate, and Zhou should not even mention himself. Zhou said that his brother should also be more careful, because he would make him regret what he said. Everyone marveled at the battle and everything going on around them. The bright lights and the battle grew more and more serious. Zhou became more and more aggressive and eager to win. He tried not to leave Han a chance to inflict a single wound. With a smirk and mockery of Han, Zhou said that during today's fight he would bring Han to his knees in front of him. Such confidence and cunning as if he knew in advance the outcome of the fight. But Han was not going to give up his seat, not showing all the worry inside him. He just smiled and continued to attack. Joe did not stop reminding Han to give him everything he had, all the strength and talents. The guy tried to show himself in the fight to the maximum and get everything he wanted. Han just silently watched and participated in the attack, as if he did not care about all the threats and words of the opponent. Because he is confident in himself and his victory. Mo was worried about Han, because Jofen had a Dharma treasure that made him much stronger and he was recognized by the teacher as a direct disciple. Mo thought that Han was in big trouble. Hing Hong Huang said that Joe is not even at the level of his younger brother Han, and Mo doesn't know him well enough to think of him like that. Mo didn't like her interfering and said, with a disgruntled look, that no one asked her. The opponent's face was twisted. He screamed with all his might. He was probably wounded. The aftermath of the fight exploded around Han. A storm was all around him, a bright light in which the hero stood proudly watching what he had done. Joe flew away at the speed of light. Only a loud thud could be heard as he fell to the damp earth. The judge was confused. His eyes were stony and staring at one point. All around him he saw the devastation that was left by the incredible fight between the two heroes. The new winner Hanju was announced from the Jade Serenity Peak, just as the second match was announced to begin immediately. All around him were shouts of confusion. What had happened in a matter of minutes? How Han had won so quickly? There was not a single living spot left on Joe. The students in the audience marveled at Han, saying that Zhou Fang was wrong to let his opponent strike the first blow. Hanju was incredible. He showed all his skills and talents. He defeated his opponent literally in one move. Hing Hong Huang said with a smile and pride that she did not even doubt him, and previously said that brother Han is the strongest. Her words again displeased Mo. She sighed unhappily, rolled her eyes and turned away from her older sister. Mo watched as the healers helped Joe, reminding him to the side. He pondered the results and the loss of everything. It seemed to him that he had lost everything he could in the moment because of the fight, and it seemed to him that Han was still holding back. The head referee announced that it was time for the top 5 battle. He said that they would be chewing to decide who would be going to the top 3 right now, and the rest would be fighting amongst themselves right now. Whoever draws the area with the red stripe in the middle will go straight to the top 3 right now, without a challenge. The master judge said that the disciple from Jade Serenity Peak, Hanju, would go straight to the top 3. Everyone around him was surprised and shocked that after such a victory, he had the greatest chance and luck. Han immediately began to think. The master told him that when he got the top 3, he would be able to clean his own house and his own cave. Now he was in the top 3, so everything the master told him became a reality. Hanju was the first person to be passed over for the top 3. Where he went straight to. He had time to rest while the 4 opponents had a semifinal match, but 2 of them would be less important. Watching the fights between the 4, the spectators were bored as they were barely moving. From the sidelines, they could only hear people saying that all the fights between the mental type cultivators were the most boring. The master asked them to finish the fight faster, to use all their skills to the maximum. He shouted at them because they did not show their talents and skills, and the master accused them that their swords were just for show. After the long-awaited conclusion of the battle, the master said that the top 3 had been determined and would now be announced. Hearing nothing, Han raised his hand in silence in the crowd. Han turned to the elder, saying that he surrendered. His behavior and decision was incomprehensible to everyone. They stood silently with stone faces watching the reaction of the master. Han said that during the previous match he had used up all his Kai, and to defeat his opponent as quickly as possible, he needed time to restore it. Therefore, he was ready to give up and just take the 3rd place. The elder was disappointed by Han's words. His face changed to a displeased expression. Cold sweat appeared on his face, and there was silence all round. With all the disappointment in his voice, the elder announced Hanju from the Jade Serenity Peak to the 3rd place and reminded him that he would receive his awards later. Han thanked the master and left. The crowd of fans pondered over what they had heard and thought that Han had just decided to make a joke. This was no excuse at all for Zhou Fan. He's not that weak. The crowd shouted that they were overestimating Han and that this was not the way to earn respect. Some had a change of heart about Zhou Fan. Some were sad to see Zhou Fan lose on this path, and Zhou Fang himself was sure that he was not as weak as they thought. Zhou Fang respected Brother Han's act of being able to bring out a smile and understanding in Zhou Fan. Han received a system notification Out of interest, he decided to see what was in it, and saw that Zhou Fan's attitude towards him had risen to a full 2 stars. The system notification also said that Han was ranked in the top 3 according to the sex. Internal evaluation, keeping a low profile, Han gets some treasure. The hero received a 7th grade family treasure, Gildan Titata secret choir, as well as the mystical divine garment of golden cicada Numen, a 7th level divine treasure, which can automatically defend against enemy attacks. It can defend itself until the soul formation realm cultivator hits it. If Han put spiritual energy into it, its defensive capabilities would increase. It was unbelievable to Han that he would be able to block the enemy's strikes in this way. The Elder didn't understand such great joy for Han in the 3rd place. He even wondered if perhaps Fei Yuan had asked him to compete for 3rd place. Han replied that the Elder was wrong, as the Master had told him to try to perform his best. The Elder said that was pretty not bad for someone who tried to give his best performance. They reached the main peak. Jinghu Zhenren congratulated the top 3 for the opportunity to become elite disciples of their sect. This time, they would all be able to choose their own cave dwelling. Jinghu Zhenren wondered who would choose the 1st place. By placing her hand, Jinghu Zhenren was able to generate several golden sparkling balls of different sizes to make her important choice. The golden balls from Jinghu Zhenren's hand turned into multicolored huge spheres with the location of the cave dwelling on the edge of the Mogunta Ridge surrounded by 18 verts. Because it is really secluded, these sumic spheres will be the ones that will lead you up to it. Jinghu Zhenren said that the bows would now keep watch over this cave dwelling. Han couldn't immediately understand why they were being made guards. Jinghu Zhenren said that the 1st cave is rich in fire and wine spirit chi. One of the 3 candidates to become elite disciples of the sect decided to choose the 1st cave because it suited him. Jinghu Zhenren said that the 2nd abode of the compound cave is rich in water, fire and tree spirit chi. The 2nd candidate confidently said that he chooses this cave to perfect himself in it. Hanu was left with the remaining dwelling in the cave. Jinghu Zhenren said that this cave has all the attributes of spiritual chi, but everyone is only as rich as in an ordinary spiritual pool. Han said he still wishes to get a cave that suits him better. Han thanked the Taoist Jinghu Zhenren and said that this was more than enough for him. Jinghu Zhenren was surprised that this child had actually managed to enter and stand in 3rd place. It seemed to Jinghu Zhenren that Huaner was not wrong and he was really a very talented hero. Jinghu Zhenren told the 3 winners that if they were ready and had chosen their cave, they could follow these light spheres that would show them the way. One of the caves is completely filled with trees and water resources, and is located in the mountains. There is a tiny entrance to the cave in the mountain, and you can see a bright light from it. At first, the entrance was so narrow that he could barely fit through it, but after advancing a short distance into the cave, the light suddenly became much larger, revealing a large area. The cave began to reveal impressive houses and a huge area. Beautiful world, magnificent nature, bamboo structures, mesmerizing sky, incredibly beautiful ponds, majestic silk trees, bamboo growing at every step, sunlight covering the whole land. Khan thought that the owner of the clothes he received was obviously from a foreign land, but he was delighted and very happy to enjoy such beautiful clothes. The mystical divine garment of the golden cicada was very unusual to Han, but also expected, because the system always provides something unusual. Most of all, Han was struck by the color, so transparent and with such a powerful protective force. Han just started to put it on as the beautiful garment became invisible on him. He put it on completely and said it didn't feel like he had always worn it. It just made his clothes shiny and smooth. It was probably meant to affect the hero himself, not his appearance. If the clothing's protection is as strong as the system describes it, then even a nascent soul expert cannot harm Han. This gives Han an unprecedented sense of security. Han can now fully focus on cultivation. In any case, compared to before this moment, it would now be difficult for others to find Han. Han carved a name outside the entrance of the cave earlier, and hopes that they will see that this cave dwelling belongs to Han. Han pondered about his cave, and concluded that this place is quite secluded. They spent so much time to find it. Zhou Feng asked Brother Mo if he was sure this was Hen's cave. He wasn't quite sure at first, but now everything was falling into place. Brother Mo asked Zhou Fan to take a closer look. Seeing the inscription left by Han, they immediately realized that it completely matched his identity. As they managed to leave, a voice came from behind Han. Mo Fucho called out to him and said that he had come to visit him. Such uninvited and unexpected guests surprised him. Han turned around and saw two guys he knew. They both stood and looked at him with a smirk. The hero inquired as to the reason for their visit and their search for the bull. Mo told him that the sect had recently completed missions related to the healthy cult of nihility. He also suggested that the rising hero join them to complete missions together and destroy one of the branches of the cult together. The brother told Han that he had experience in conducting investigations, as it turned out. This particular branch has many pills that can help them in their cultivation. Han thanked the guys for their good intentions and suggestions, but he refused, saying that he didn't want to leave for a while because he needed to enter the lineup to make a breakthrough. After thanking them again, the guy left with a dissatisfied face. Mo was surprised that Han wanted to make a breakthrough in isolation. He also asked if he was going to enter the realm of the Golden Core. Han said that he was going to do so if there were no more options, especially he would have to enter his seclusion. Mo grabbed Han's shoulder firmly and pulled him to wait and listen to him that getting into the heart of gold would not be easy. The heavenly problems he would face would be even worse and more horrible than the problems and trials they had faced in the Foundation realm. Mo said if he joins them in this mission, they will give him the first choice of the Transcendence Tribulation pill. Han thought about the offer. The brothers noticed it and Mo said that he knew that in order to tempt Hanju, they had to bring up the topic of cultivation and cultivation. Han thought that in addition to opportunities, they needed steps and development in the process, because without that, they would not be able to go further and develop more. The boys saw the doubt on Han's face and realized that they were doing the right thing. Han received an invitation from a disciple who was going to get fame and were suggestions for to help them and succeed together, and he would get a low-grade spiritual store, or reject them and develop in his own direction, which he could get and round the reading everything. Han said that the choice for him is obvious. Mo tried to change his mind, insisting that this mission is extremely important and, if they work together, they will definitely achieve a good result. Their status in the Pure Jade sect will also increase in the future, and they can make a name and reputation for themselves in the cultivation world. Han said that he was sorry, but he is not interested in fame or fortune. If the Pure Jade sect gets into trouble in the future, he will definitely draw his life to protect the sect. But still, Han made a choice in his favor and said that right now he only wants to cultivate in the world. Mo and his brother said they really don't understand this talented guy, and they don't understand his choices and actions anymore. The boys continued to discuss Han, his strength, his shyness. They concluded that despite all his good qualities, skills and talents, he could not get stronger just by practicing with himself. Mo said that he can't avoid fighting for opportunities if he really wants to improve himself. He should wait, watch and think, because sooner or later he will realize the right choice. The other brother said that if he doesn't want any results, it will be difficult for him to achieve everything if he lives in a war and works on his own all the time. Mo thought that if he had the honor to get all these elixirs, he thought that with them he could become better than Hanju. Mo was too confident. He told Han to just wait. He was willing to do anything to prove that no one could compare to him. When that time came, they would have no choice but to look back and regret it. At the same time, Han was rewarded by the system for rejecting a disciple from the same sect. The sect gave Han a gift that contained a lot of extra space. It can be used as a storage ring or a storage strat, is too elastic and not easy to destroy. Han smiled at the gift. He liked it very taking it. He thanked the system and went away. After 2 years, all 6 spiritual powers have reached. After all his trials, he finally has a chance to break through the Golden Core. Han's motivation was too huge. He didn't want to ruin everything he had gotten, because only 3 out of 10 Foundation Realm cultivators can break through to the Golden Core. Han sitting on a mountain shrouded in gray rain clouds, thinking about everything. Black, dark clouds covered the mountain more and more. Han remembered that he had been told that it was easy to give birth to an inner demon during the formation of the Golden Core, and he hoped that he would not be so lucky as to experience this luck. Heavenly sorrow could bring the hero to death. He could be brought down to earth by an inner demon. Han stares at the floor, wondering what will befall him. Han pondered, a voice in his head asking him what he wanted: fame, money, or a woman. The voice in his head kept going on and on. Han is strong enough now that he must stop hiding himself and take the time to show the world his greatest power. Whether it is the search for the greatest holiness or dominion over all beings, Han only has to say the word and the demon will do it. Han was frantic. Sweat beaded on his face. Fear and worry were evident in his eyes. He barely agreed and nodded peacefully in fright. Han didn't understand how the demon dared to say that it would help him achieve his desires if he kept only these limited options. The demon didn't wait long and didn't take no for an answer. He said goodbye in a second and was about to disappear. The inner demon is eliminated. Han thought that now was the right time to put all his efforts to make the long-awaited breakthrough. Han looked around and decided to act. He looked up into the sky and remembered all the demon's words and suggestions. Han activated the 6 paths of reincarnation technique, also the mystic divine garment of golden cicada. A bright light, of unusual color, covered the entire sky. A message came to the guy. The system congratulated him for breaking through to the realm of the golden core and obtaining a continuous magical sword. The sword is made from the bones of the Dylan. It contains the soul of the Olan, has the effect of banishing evil. Khan was overjoyed, for his life expectancy had increased again. He set himself a small goal to break through the nascent soul realm within 100 years. Khan was overjoyed, but he also realized that if he exceeded 100 years, he would take it as a loss. Lying on the bed, the boy had various thoughts. He decided to reconsider his interpersonal relationships before he started. His eyes filled with worry and fear. A sense of incomprehension. He lay there wondering what he had read. Li Dingji's good friend Li Dingji was attacked by a beast cultivator. Yuer's good friend Li Dingji was attacked by a beast cultivator. Han thought that being in the Jade Serenity Peak sect did not give any guarantee of safety from a holder's cultivation. Han's good friend Li Dingji had been attacked by a human cultivator and was badly injured, but he was lucky enough to escape. Han thought that it could be that the cult had started to build up the Jade Serene Peak sect. Han didn't know how the master was now and decided to check it out personally. Han was shocked by what he read. His eyes became so big, his eyebrows became furrowed, and his gaze became frightened. The injured disciple from the outer sect is already at the those who are lightly injured are asked to give way to those who are seriously injured and let them recover first in the hall. The first day was told to gather in the northwest was surprised at how many wounded people were waiting for help, traumatized heroes with a huge number of wounds. He walked past all the wounded. He was in the middle of the street. Healers were rescuing the seriously wounded with no time to run from one to the other. Dig's sister Chang was distributing aid to the wounded and suddenly saw Han's student in the crowd. Han was happy to see his older sister. Chang was also surprised by the unexpected meeting. Someone turned to Han and told him to tell him to meet Chang as soon as he found her. Disciple Han greeted the master. After completing the internal evaluation of the sect. This disciple was in a hurry to cultivate. Han said that he forgot to visit the master and proudly said that he would accept his punishment. The master was surprised that Han really wanted to visit and check on her, because she thought he had betrayed her long ago. Han had a tear in his eye. He didn't know what to say. He was thinking of different sentences in his head. Master said that the current situation of the Pure Jade sect is facing an unprecedented disaster. Master said she would give Han another chance. Leaving the sect right now was the last chance. Han was too surprised. He was outraged. He thought leaving the Jade Pure sect was a joke from the master. He wondered if the Jade Pure sect would face rejection. Han thought and pondered the first option, which was more to his liking. The system sent the notification again. Sect Master Ivor is in danger. No one knows if he is still alive or not. Han had the choice to leave the Jade Pure sect and wander the cultivation world. He can also get a bottle of condensate pills by becoming a member of the Jade Pure sect. Until the sect is destroyed or the cult surrenders or targets him, he can get a piece of equipment and a magic manual. The master sadly said that she has only 2 choices, to survive or to die, so she has no choice but to stay in the Pure Jade sect. Han began to think about what he would do, because he had a really hard choice to make. Han shouted. He was sure of his loyalty to his master. The master asked with trepidation in her voice if Han was afraid of death. Han only laughed at these words, but still confessed his fears. But even in the mystical divine garb of my golden cicada, he is confident. Han received the system notification again. Fairy Heat 1's favor has returned to the hero. Current favorability is 3 stars. Han was a little upset, but also thought 3 stars. If he gets 1 more star, she will be a potential companion. Han said he needed it. After all, his heart only follows the path of the Tao, and in return death is simply inevitable anyway. Han said that a man has either a good or mediocre life. Han, on the other hand, aspires to longevity, so he will not deny his master. but he also warned that if he encountered a nasty enemy, he would first be interested in saving his life without hesitation or hesitation. The master said that she never taught him such a thing and doesn't understand where he gets such thoughts from. That's why she advised him not to go that far. Han thanked the master and said that the master's kindness and care was invaluable. After all, the master had always helped him to fight for opportunities. This all really comes from deep within Han's heart. Throughout his life here, the master has treated him the best since he entered the sect. She didn't blame him or become difficult for him even though he didn't follow her instructions. Han really hopes that the master will live a long peaceful life. Master said what to expect from a disciple of Jade Serene Peak. However, the situation is not as dire as the sect reports. This was very kind of the master. Chang Yur said that it was actually because the teacher saw that Han is usually so afraid of death, so she asked him to leave early. Master asked if Han had encountered any problems in cultivation. He is just as likely to train with Master as Chang Yur does. Master has never taught him as her disciple. No wonder he is constantly trying to improve on his own. Han refused the master and said there was no point in bothering her. She did not understand how dare he reject her kind offer. The master told Han that he could leave then. The master ordered Chang Yur to get there before Han did. The master told Chang Yur to help her little brother according to what she would tell her. The master handed Chang Yur a small bag. Chang Yur understood what the master said and went on her way. A confused Han didn't understand what Chang Yur's older sister Chang Yur was doing in his personal cave dwelling. This made him worried. Chang Yur replied that she was asked by the master to help Han create a formation and plant some spiritual herb seeds inside the cave to help Han increase the spiritual chi in his cave on the mountain. Chang Yur explained that this formation is made up of ruby stones and can be activated by introducing spiritual energy. This formation can hide the entrance to the cave, and if someone makes it inside, they will be trapped in an illusion. Chang Yur showed Han spiritual flowers that require no maintenance and increase the spiritual energy of the surroundings. Han remarked that he didn't realize Chang knew so much. Although Chang Yur's level of cultivation is lower than Han's, this older sister knows alchemy, talisman making, array formation, exorcism, and a few other things. Han began to thank his master, his elder sister, and was very happy with both of them. Big sister Chang Yur asked Han not to thank her. Chang Yur's older sister asked Han what about moving in with him after a while to accompany him. Sweat was dripping off Han and he was about to ask big sister Chang Yur a question. Han asked big sister Chang Yur if she was going to use his cave dwelling. There was an awkward momentary pause between them. Han's face changed as he waited for big sister Chang Yur's response. Big sister Chang Yur chimed in that Han only needed to think about cultivating, and his desire to cultivate was disappearing. The events are moved to 5 years later in Han's cave. Thunder cultivation potential increased to the 3rd level of the golden core. Han recalled that the sect master had a hard time. Han had heard from the master that he often tried to investigate a healthy nether cult, and it was always problematic. Brother Mo and Brother Joe were on board now, and Han was glad he wouldn't be joining them. Han received a system alert that a carrier of the kindred provident had been detected. The system was checking its origin. Han wondered about the system message and worried that someone was near his cave habitat. The system showed Han that it was Chen Sanshin, who possessed his father's extremely strong door technique. After the death of his parents, a brutal temper awakened in him, and he slaughtered over 100 bandits in his 7 years. He has been killing constantly ever since. Eventually he joined the cult of the healthy bottom. He is currently considered the most successful disciple of the sect. Han was confused by this message and didn't understand what he was doing in his sect. If it weren't for the system, Han wouldn't have known about the infiltration of his cave now. Chen Sanshin found the message at the entrance to Han's cave and laughed it off, saying that all pure jade people are really cowards. Chen Sanshin was confused as to why there were such large letters carved here. Chen Sanshin wondered about the possibility of a cave abode here, but he couldn't find the entrance. Behind the hidden entrance stood an indignant Han, who was annoyed that Chen Sanshin was calling him a coward. Han looked around apprehensively, with the certainty that the master was alone here. He decided it was a good time to congratulate him. The master turned to Han and realized that he had murderous intentions, not benevolent ones. She was ready to attack, so she took a stance and waited for the attack. Han was surprised by the master's quick reaction. Their bodies came in contact in a fierce fight, in a fierce attack. The master was surprised at Han's strength, He didn't realize what kind of technique he was using. He even had Kai in him. The master realized that her best solution is to surrender, because she doesn't even have a chance to get back at him, because she feels that he is stronger. The master was just trying to stop him and take pity on him. Han asked the master what she was doing here in the Pure Jade sect. The master replied that it was a misunderstanding, he was just passing by. Also had doubts about who Han was and where he was from, because he had done research, and as it turned out, there was no elder in the Pure Jade sect who was so profound and skillful in sword technique. With his last strength, the master still realized that this great elder was not from the Pure Jade sect. Han turned to Chen Sanchen, saying that he was by nature an apologetic and senior disciple of the Healthy Void cult. He decided to intimidate the guy who pretended to be a master and wondered what would happen to him if Han handed him over to the Pure Jade sect. Chen was frightened and wondered how Han knew him and his origins. He tried to apologize to Han, begging him to forgive him, reneged that such a young and handsome hero was still only at the 9th level of foundation. His suspicions fell on the fact that Chen was just an apprentice of an elder and whether he should capture him. He also wondered if an exchange would be possible if the sect master was captured in the future. While Han was pondering, Chen let himself get close to him and put his sword to his throat. Chen tried to blackmail him by making a condition that if Han did not let him leave alive, he would be killed. Chen apologized for having the nerve to interrupt Han. Han said, in a frightened and confused manner, that he had no disciples. Chen's dagger fell to the floor, and so did Chen, who apologized and said it was all just a harmless joke. Chen Sanchen was frightened, and that Senior Han was only at the 9th level of foundation establishment. That wouldn't be enough to suppress him. Chen Sanchen began to wonder if Han was an expert cultivator because he couldn't escape. Han was not pleasantly surprised that Chen Sanchen was the strongest core disciple of a brightly colored cultist. Did Han deal with him so easily because he's weak, or are his techniques very strong? Han ordered Chen Sanchen to follow him. Chen Sanchen instantly agreed, and thanked Han for letting him live. Han and Chen Sanchen traveled to the cave of Han's habitat. Han realized that he could not keep Chen Sanchen here by force, and began to contemplate other methods to keep Chen Sanchen in his habitat cave. In turn, Chen Sanchen finally figured out why he couldn't see the entrance to Han's habitat cave. Han originally thought he should hand Chen Sanchen over to his master, but if he does, Chen Sanchen will definitely try to escape at the cost of his life. All Han knows is to cut and kill. He doesn't have the ability to suppress Chen Sanchen. He's probably just overestimating Han, which is why Chen Sanchen doesn't try to escape. Han summons Chen Sanchen to him, and the latter in turn immediately obediently responds. Han asked Chen Sanchen to hit him with all his strength. A frightened Chen Sanchen thought that Han was just looking for a reason to kill him. Chen Sanchen fearfully began to admit his mistakes and realize what he had done wrong, hoping that Han would have mercy on him. Han insisted that Chen Sanchen hit him, because if he didn't try it now, he would be thinking about striking him in the future. Chen Sanchen fearfully said that he wouldn't dare to hit Han, since Han is always protected by the mystical divine garment of the golden cicada. Chen Sanchen cannot harm him. Han insisted that Chen Sanchen hit him, but the latter in turn kept refusing, saying he was too low for that. Han decided to put up with his refusal to punch him. From today, Han ordered Chen Sanchen to stay in the habitat cave and maintain spiritual herbs for Han, and so can Chen Sanchen to grow them. Han never would have thought that Chen Sanchen would be such a coward.